Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. We're going to get on into an official review of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness by Sam Raimi, 2022. So here's the deal. Uh, I loved the movie. It kind of went all the way to my number one on my letterbox list of. I have like a ranked um, Marvel Cinematic Universe films and miniseries ranked by number of my preference. So on letterbox.com. That is a plug, cool site if you want to keep like a film diary, do film reviews, compare with other fans, whatever. Just keep track of everything you've ever seen, like I do, obsessively. So Doctor Strange kind of leapfrogged to the number one spot out of the 33 entries. So let me take a deep breath here and get into this. I've been kind of putting this off because I've been kind of tired, been kind of down, having enormous financial stress going on. I'll probably want another whole video for that. But um, suffice to say, I finally was catalyzed by the same reason I was kind of putting it off, which was the fan bro reaction to the movie. If you ever want to get compelled to defend something that you enjoy, read comments about it on YouTube, and then you'll be like, "Wow, man, I gotta get to bat about this." So that's kind of how I feel, and that's kind of how I felt initially, but not combatively. I just felt um, kind of this sense of what's the German word, Schadenfreude or whatever, a satisfaction, vindication that, um, once again, as with Moon Knight, as with WandaVision, as with a lot of MCU offerings, the fan bros have got it all wrong. Their theories, their speculations, their demands of Marvel, you know, whereas surprisingly, some of the things that us aging old school Marvel fans I've hoped will come to pass are happening. Like, for instance, Kang actually showing up at the end of Loki. Marvel had me so. Marvel's timidity and fear of like the bottom line, or we're going to alienate fans, or they won't get it, or we need new fans, or this is going too deep into the mythos. We need to kind of ease them into it, which there's a little bit to be said for that from a commercial point of view. But come on, we're full tilt into the Marvel Cinematic Universe now. This timidity they evinced early on to their detriment. It artistically hurt some of their films, I think. Uh, it is no longer needed. And I was like, oh, they're still going to do it. I felt that way about Kang with Loki. I felt that way with Jake Lockley about Moon Knight. And I was wrong in both cases. They're going all in more on the source material and the vast amount of incredible shit that's out there to adapt and to draw from and to bring to life. And that's what people like me want. That's why we're invested in the MCU. Otherwise, I'd be like, this is just another money making scam, franchise, mega buck bullshit endeavor, which is how I see almost all the other Hollywood franchises, to be honest. A couple have a few creative merits and certainly some technical merits, but as far as special effects, but mostly, yeah, they're. I mean, but come on, like the Fast and Furious 10. Why would someone like me give a fuck about that? Why would I care? Um, I'd just rather see Triple X with not porn, but that's okay too. I'd rather just see Triple X with Vin Diesel in a car with, at least in that one, he had I think Sam Jackson popped up and he had Asia Argento. And I haven't seen that movie all the way through, nor do I plan to. But I'd rather just see that and skip the entire Fast and Furious canon, which I have. Um, James Bond, that doesn't interest me, and I've gone into reasons why in my Shang-Chi videos. Um, Not a diss on a great classic character, just saying. Star Wars, I've expressed my feelings about that in my Mandalorian video. I don't care about Harry Potter. I don't care about Avatar. I don't care about the Lord of the Rings movies, even though I was a fan of the books at one time. Uh, but Marvel, I grew up with. It was kind of like in my blood. It was kind of infused in me. Right now, I'm selling like a 5,000 strong comic book collection. Not fast enough, though. I'm probably going to, well, I'm hoping to keep about 1,000 of them at the most. But I may end up selling all but maybe a few dozen the way things are going. But if they'll sell, the economy sucks. Again, back to my financial woes of another time, another video. So here we go. I'm 5 minutes in. What do I think about this movie? So I saw it the other night. I had this urge Friday to see it opening night, even though I knew from initially checking out the ticket placements and the seat placements. You can do that, online and pick your seat that you want. I always do that. I always reserve a seat. I never walk in because a movie like this, walking in opening weekend it's absurd. No offense to people who love to do that. It's just you're not going to get a seat you prefer. You're not going to get an experience you prefer, most likely. My experience that I prefer is the balcony, as far from the madding crowd, above the madding crowd as possible. And if there's a few madding crowd to either side of me, I just close them off because this place AMC Pavilion has these snazzy, press a button and the seat goes all the way up if you want to do that. But it's comfortable. There's a bar in the theaters now. I didn't partake this time. I haven't drank alcohol in a few months since that long period. You guys remember I was drinking a lot because my arm was killing me, and I was drowning my sorrows, and it's still giving me problems, but it's better. Thanks for asking. But anyway, how are you guys, by the way? Oh, good. I hope. But anyway, it's a comfortable experience at the theater a mile from my house. There's an AMC multiplex. And then in the same shopping center where I work, slave for the man for five hours a week, occasionally more, but so I'm desperately trying to get another job. Again, more on that problem. But there's a nice place called Regal there. There's a Regal franchise or whatever there. It used to be a pain to go there because I don't drive before I started working in that plaza because they, unlike the AMC near me, would occasionally play some like one night only, 1 week only art house kind of special engagement things. That theater is where I saw Regal. That theater is where I saw Planet of the Apes via Fathom events on the big screen with my good buddy Tim McLean, and some other friends, and that's also where I saw Mandy 2 times in a row. The one night it played in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm pretty sure that's also where I saw the nationally one night only engagement of the uncut House that Jack Built by Lars von Trier, which I really need to own and I really need to review. So if a patron wants to buy me House that Jack Built uncut, please do that. I would love to add it to this channel. I've talked about it a little before. Some of my Lars von Trier fan friends don't like it. Some of my on the fence Lars fans don't like it, and I love it though. I'm weird. I like Hellstrom. What can I say? I like Ang Lee's Hulk. That kicked me completely out of all credibility there, but it's true. So that segues me back into Marvel. So yeah, let's get to talking about Doctor Strange because this is probably gonna take a while. So at the theater near me, I scoped out the seats, and long story short, there was one balcony seat left, H8, in the in one of the 4 theaters they were showing it in their multiplex that day, or maybe 5, and there weren't any at the AMC near my house that night. So I was like, well, and it was like 3 hours away, and I still had an hour of work. So I was like, I'm going to do it. So I booked it. I had the money because our permanent channel patron, Tim Tolbert, ladies and gentlemen, friend, collaborator, and kibitzer here, he graciously purchased me a ticket and even threw in a little bit of money so that I could eat. And it was a no-brainer. I just chilled at my work for a while, and then I went over to the theater and chilled there for a while. And I ate at Target in the shopping center, bought something cheap, and heated it up and drank something there rather than spend a fortune on the food there at the theater. Though I wanted to, but I was like, let's do this wisely. Let's use this money wisely because it's not my money. It's the channel's money. And I'm broke, so I'm depending on the kindness of others. So I got there first before everyone else. I got my seat before everyone else, as usual. And sometimes that's a drag for a lot of reasons, mainly because the film doesn't start on time, and I still see a ton of obnoxious trailers. And I have to worry about my phone dying and all this kind of stuff. But this was actually nice, though. I unwound after a long day at work, and actually it was 6 hours. That's the most they'll give me any more week. I mentioned that, right? That was my 6 hour, or 5 hour, but I worked 6 day. So I chilled out, and I just drank a soda, and that was all I had. And I waited, and eventually the theater filled up. I'm pretty sure there weren't any open seats except the very front of the screen in the handicapped little lane there. But nobody in my corner was obnoxious. There were a lot of kids. When I say kids, a lot of teenagers were there. And on my row, there were teenagers. And to the right of me, there were like 2 teenage girls and their 2 teenage boy friends or boy friend zoned friends, boys, friend zoned boys. And at least it looked like they were friends and boys. And to the left of me, there were some kind of, overweight, nerdy guys with giant popcorns. And that's cool. I see them at every Marvel movie. We're good, man. We're good. And I'm fine with geeks and nerds. It's just fan bros, drive me nuts. So this is what I got to say, man. Going in, I knew there were, scenes that I would be super curious about. And yes, the one I was super curious about was the one that got the most electronic ink splashed on it, including part of a video of mine, which was the Illuminati. And I talked in my video this week in the MCU, which I posted just a few days ago, like a day or two before Doctor Strange hit, about the Illuminati, the comic book sources for it, and what my theories were and what news I'd gained about its nature in the MCU and specifically in this film. Well, everything was wrong. Here's the deal. Marvel made its ultimate conquest over the fan bros. And this is what I was getting back to earlier. Even though they had a major leak, like 3 days before release of the Illuminati, of Wanda Maximoff battling a team comprised of Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, played by John Krasinski, his debut, and Anson Mount returning to his role as Black Bolt, albeit this time appropriately costumed. Maria Rambeau, which in my This Week in the MCU video I incorrectly identified as Monica Rambeau being Captain Marvel of this alternate universe, but it was actually her mother, Maria Rambeau, played by Lasha Lively. I apologize. And to the actress and the character. And Captain Carter / America / Britain, the alternate version of Peggy Carter, founder of S.H.I.E.L.D., who gets the super soldier formula and the S.H.I.E.L.D. herself, which turned out to be a pretty badass character, I have to say. I haven't seen the episode of of What If that spawned her. But I think now I watch it. I like Haley Atwell. She's a really good actress. She's done good in Marvel. She's a very attractive woman, and it's very cool. She was in a great episode of Black Mirror I liked. Long story for another day. Anyway, Haley is back in the house, the MCU house, once again. She even had her own Marvel series, Agent Carter, which no one really talks about anymore, but apparently, unlike Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agent Carter is still canon because tons of stuff referred about tons of elements of it are referred to in Avengers Endgame on the S.H.I.E.L.D. chronology that we see kind of played out during the time heist of the film. So what the fuck does all this have to do with Doctor Strange? I know y'all are like, God damn, man, get to the point. So Illuminati, that was a big thing I was curious about, but I really just was hoping for a great Doctor Strange movie and another good Sam Raimi movie. I have friends, very close friends, who love Sam Raimi, love his work, revere him. I love him. I don't revere him. I do love him. I do love some of his work. I would say of his canon, I love about half of his movies. The other half, to be frank, I either dislike or just don't give a fuck about. That's harsh, but it's the truth. To me, Raimi, and who can blame him? After the disaster of Crime Wave, he kind of bounced back with Evil Dead 2. I love Evil Dead. Evil Dead is always going to be just a classic of cinema. Evil Dead 2, my view of it goes up and down, but it's solid. It's good. It's a weird kind of remake of Evil Dead. It took me years to finally see Army of Darkness, and when I saw it, I was not disappointed because I expected nothing from it, and that's what I got. Nothing. I didn't enjoy the movie. Didn't like it. I'd heard all the jokes for years. Every line in the movie I'd heard already. So when I finally, watched it, it was like, I don't know, like already played out for me. I get why people love it, and I get it as part of the trilogy, and people love Ash. I still haven't watched Ash vs. Evil Dead. I haven't sought that one out. I like the character Ash. I like Bruce Campbell a lot. And I do love the original Evil Dead. The whole mythos I'm not as invested in as a lot of people, partially because it's really like a sub-mythos of a lot of other things, particularly Lovecraftian things, but it, like the Necronomicon Des Mortes, which is not the same book as the Necronomicon, and on and on. And the Deadites, they have their own thing in Kandahar or whatever that country is, but all that stuff has extensive crossovers with other properties, horror, science fiction, action, adventure properties in various media. My good friend Sean Lee Levin or my buddy Win Scott Eckert, they have written extensively about these kind of connections. And for people who are really, really fanatical Evil Dead fans, they need to check those out. Basically, 4 books, all called crossovers. Check them out as soon as possible if you want to read all about all of that stuff. And I'm interested in that stuff from a pop cultural viewpoint. But as far as like a fan of a franchise or Raimi's direction, particularly, or the Evil Dead as a concept, I'm like obsessed with. I'm not there with those guys. But I love the first movie, so I go by Raimi case by case, film by film. And I didn't care for Darkman. I saw it in the theater. I was disappointed with that one. And when I saw it, I had not yet seen. I don't know if I'd even seen Evil Dead yet. I think I'd seen the first one. So I didn't expect much out of Spider-Man, because he did For the Love of the Game, which sucked, and Simple Plan, which is mediocre. Another movie that sucked, I can't remember. He's done a lot of movies that sucked. I don't think he's good in Hollywood unless he's free to do whatever he wants to do. The Gift, a friend of mine liked. I thought it was mediocre, above average for where he was going. By the time we got to Drag Me to Hell, I was just like, eh. But I loved the Spider-Man movies, even Spider-Man 3. So 5 movies to his credit that I really like all the way to love. So I'm good with Sam Raimi doing Doctor Strange. He's the first kind of, not the first, but he's the first like auteur director Marvel's enlisted that's gotten really fanfare as one. I mean, Kenneth Branagh did Thor, but they didn't really hype it up like Kenneth Branagh. This is gonna be like Shakespeare. I mean, in some interviews, they kind of touched on that to kind of draw in that fan base, that segment of the viewing audience. But it's not like when Marvel was like the wild, wild west, I call it, when there was no Marvel Studios and there was Marvel properties farmed out to all these different studios. In those cases, a lot of times they did see auteur like directors. So that's why they got Sam Raimi to do the Spider-Man trilogy. That's why they got the up-and-coming Bryan Singer to do the X-Men movies. That's why they got Ang Lee to do the Hulk. Yes, Ang Lee did the Hulk. I'm an Ang Lee Hulk fan. Damn it. Okay, I'm out of the closet all the way. You could argue Mark Steven Johnson, who did Daredevil and the Ghost Rider movies, because he wrote and directed them and he had a vision, but he was not an auteur really before that, and he didn't really show much of a vision actually on the screen. He tried his best. He was a fan who was out of his element, but he did have some good visual ideas and some good story ideas. He wasn't an auteur. He wasn't a great creator, but he deserves some props. But they selected him the same reason. Unfortunately, they also selected screenwriter Jonathan Hensley to make his directorial debut with the same thing. Oh, we like your writing. We're going to let you direct for the first time. We're going to give you The Punisher, man. Go for it. And unfortunately, he did not deserve that freedom because that was not a very good movie. Even though I did like Thomas Jane as Frank Castle, it wasn't a good movie. Yes, of course, I bought copies of all these movies when they first came out on DVD. And I have friends who buy all of them on Blu-ray, the Marvel Studios ones. I'm just not that big of a completist anymore, but nor can I afford to be. But it's not like that now. Marvel kind of keeps an eye on people, and when they do start veering in the auteur direction, they go for somebody trendy who's on the verge of or has won awards and made some money. And in this case, they did get Chloe Zhao for the Eternals, which to me was an unmitigated kind of disaster. And I did a whole long video about that movie and why I didn't really like it. But I get, their heart was in the right place there, I guess. It's just she was the wrong person to do Eternals. Now, Sam Raimi back in the day was the right person to do Spider-Man. He's a huge Ditko Lee Silver Age Marvel buff, and he was the right guy to do, therefore, Doctor Strange. Unfortunately, when the first Doctor Strange came out, they were still doing the hack of the week. Oh, some guy director who is malleable that we can control but has a mild buzz, but and sometimes it really paid off, like with the Russo brothers did 4 great films for Marvel and then split, took their well-gotten gains and left and produced Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I also reviewed recently on this channel. Check it out. Oh yeah, by the way, hit the like button. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. So yeah, but Sam Raimi was a surprise. I almost didn't believe it when I read it, and when I read it, I almost didn't care. I was almost like, oh, they're just going to tell Sam Raimi what to do. Well, no, Sam Raimi, he stepped up to the plate and he gave it his all, and he finally gave the world a live-action Doctor Strange film that we deserve. Is it perfect? The only reasons it isn't perfect as a Doctor Strange movie as a movie for the kind of movie it is, it's perfect in my opinion. The only reason it's not perfect as a Doctor Strange movie is because it does bear the weight of some of the dubious decisions that were made on that first Doctor Strange movie, directed by Scott Derrickson and co-written by that Cargill guy, both of whom from interviews all through that cycle showed their asses to the world, and they were ugly and they stank, and my opinion of them is, from previous videos you've probably guessed, is very low. After watching the new Doctor Strange, my opinion of Derrickson and Cargill is unspeakably low. I mean, to me, what they did to Doctor Strange was it was a joke, and it was an expensive joke, and the joke was on us. But fortunately, there were enough clever bits of the joke that we could kind of extract and kind of just try to carry on. Cumberbatch was good casting. His characterization of Doctor Strange, he's the actor. It's not his fault. He's been given this particular iteration of Doctor Strange as kind of a smart aleck, kind of a cynic. It was a storytelling choice with the first film to, instead of having Doctor Strange when he learns the magic arts and all this stuff, not only does he become more powerful and more knowledgeable about the universe and everything, how everything works, magic, with all this wisdom. He didn't evince the wisdom. He didn't express the wisdom. He didn't change his outward personality. He was still like the cynical surgeon, except now he was the Sorcerer Supreme. There is one comic book precedent for that. The first comic book writer who wrote Doctor Strange like that ever, oddly, was the one who was one of the biggest adherents to his traditional characterization as this kind of sagely, kind, philosophical, introspective, intellectual character, kind of enlightened, which I think is what Ditko was getting at. Ditko was getting at this guy is a materialist through and through. Life breaks him. He tries every practical means. None of them work. He seeks out the occult. He finds his answer, but he finds with it comes a responsibility, comes great responsibility. That's a Ditko line. And therefore he ascends not only to a responsibility of safeguarding the universe from malefic forces, but also seeing things in a different, more philosophical light than he did in his prior life. That's the whole parable of Doctor Strange as conceived, as written, and as maintained for about the first 3 decades of his printing history, publishing history. So Roy Thomas, a writer in question who really did a lot to carry on that particular characterization, that classic characterization, was also the writer who decided, after a very lengthy, exhausting bout with black magic, which I'll get to more of that later, in the Peter B. Gillis run of Doctor Strange, Roy Thomas inherited it and began a new freestanding book, all new #1, called Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme. And that one, Strange managed to kind of redeem himself from all he'd been through, having to master black magic in order to fight greater evils and be corrupted. Keep this in mind. And he lost his eye. He lost his innocence, I guess. He regained his eye, and he began speaking in that way, more down to earth, more earthy, more vernacular, still somewhat philosophical, but I think Roy even reflected in some of the dialogue. I mean, in some of the dialogue or the exposition that, Stephen had been changed and he didn't quite bear the universe on his shoulders as much. He wasn't quite as cosmic in his thinking. He was a little more back down to earth, and wisely he got back with his longtime love, Clea, and who he had broken up with during a just mad moment. But a great story by Roger Stern and Marshall Rogers, Michael Golden. So, well, yeah. So there are precedents for the way he acted in the first movie. It seemed like an obvious lowest common denominator choice for Marvel to go with that particular characterization, and I guess it was an obvious one, and it's one they stuck to. But it was used to good effect by the writers of Thor Ragnarok and the two Avengers films that Strange is in, and I grew to like Cumberbatch's Strange, and in the Spider-Man film, he's really amping up the wisecracks and goofiness. But he still carries that persona of Doctor Strange. So if you accept that persona of Doctor Strange, what Marvel and Figa and Cumberbatch himself, the choices they've made to personify that character. Once you get used to that, if you're a long time fan like me of the comics, then it's good because he looks like Doctor Strange. His story is accurate to the comics, except for a few weird cosmetic things, um, and much more accurate than the Doctor Strange TV movie, which I also reviewed on this channel recently. Please watch it. It's a popular video with me for some reason. I guess everybody's like, "Oh, Doctor Strange, let's watch it." But then they're like, "What the fuck is this?" I liked Peter Hooton as Doctor Strange. I liked that naive and philosophical, very 70s vibed, because of 78 take on Doctor Strange. I have a soft spot for it then. I mean, I have a soft spot for it now. To me, it's a legit adaptation. It succeeds more as a movie on its own right, as enjoyable, than as a great adaptation. As a great adaptation, it definitely fails, except with some of the vibes and the sentiment, the essence is translated. But the facts, the letter of the law, the specific details are radically changed, unfortunately. With Doctor Strange 2016 by Scott Derrickson, a lot of the details from the comics are restored. It's very close in many ways, but the spirit is lost, utterly lost. So this film, a lot of the spirit's regained, and I like the way Raimi did it because basically he used the thing that was going to hook people into this movie. And here's the bait and switch Marvel did. The hook was going to be the multiverse, the expanding of the concept that was alluded to in Spider-Man Far From Home, that was explored in depth in the Loki miniseries, and that was explored in super depth in Spider-Man No Way Home, the film. And of course, sundry references such as the What If animated series that confirms its existence, etc. This film does not reference the events of the Loki miniseries at all. However, you can be, if you've seen that, you can be confident that it is part of the contributing factors to the multiverse exploding out of control again. Because in Loki, it's like the idea was they'd pared down, the Time Variance Authority had pared down the amount of timelines and variant universes to a manageable amount. And then when Kang was killed by Sylvie/Loki, opened the door to there being infinite multiverses again, multiversi again, multivi. And here goes my cat, Kal-El. Say hi, buddy. No, you gotta look up here, man. You gotta jump. Okay, so anyway, that's my buddy. He's making sure I get all he's making sure I get all the facts right because he's a big Doctor Strange fan. So, the thing is, and that's another thing. Why didn't Agatha Harkness have a cat, Ebony, like in the comics when she was in WandaVision? Yeah, I hate when they ruin the details of an adaptation like that. I'm just joking. I'm kidding. And Agatha Harkness is getting her own TV series for some reason. And Ebony, that cat, better fucking be a character in there. He better talk, too. He better be like Sabrina. So, Doctor Strange. Yes, Raimi took one of the big selling points of the movie, this multiverse exploding, building on those works, and you're like, oh, I'm going to see tons of universes and alternate takes on Marvel characters like in What If, and it's going to be wild, and we're going to see all these other characters and actors from pre-Marvel Studios embodying these characters like we did in Spider-Man No Way Home, like we saw Tobey Maguire. We're going to see Tobey Maguire in this movie. This is how the fan bro brain trust exploded, from the brow of the inferior brain. It's like, hey, I did read that. Tobey Maguire is going to be in here. Hugh Jackman's going to be Wolverine again. We might see Nicolas Cage as Ghost Rider. Everybody thought there was going to be this kaleidoscopic, I guess, hour-long like little parade through the multiverse and seeing all the different iterations. Now, let me be clear. There is this kaleidoscopic parade through the multiverse. And there is an hour and a half long storyline of them going from one universe to another. However, There's nothing like I just described. It's much more subtle, and I have to say, much more artistically done, visually powerful, a lot of fantasy, a lot of wonderment, if I can use such a term, and a lot of Ditko and a lot of psychedelia, which have always infused a live action Doctor Strange, but never really has, and finally has. Oddly, though, Marvel did a bad thing and did not credit Steve Ditko on this film. It says based on the Marvel comics, which is the tact they're taking now, I guess, because they said that on Moon Knight intros and the Hawkeye intros, and I guess in the Vision, WandaVision too. And the thing is, you have to sue to get your name on as a creator with Marvel. Occasionally, Marvel will be gracious. Now, in the case of the Netflix Marvel series, they were gracious. They credited the original creators, i.e., the people who came up with the character and or wrote and drew the first appearance. That was their metric for creation. Same as the official handbook of the Marvel Universe online uses that same metric. So they did that on all the Netflix shows, and then at the end of each episode of the Netflix shows, they credited every creator whose creation was in that particular episode, and they were very meticulous. Now, they did make one big boner of a mistake, but it was deliberate, I'm sure, in all those 6 different series they did on Netflix. Now, all of which are on Disney Plus now. They did not credit Wally Wood as contributing significantly to Daredevil. His name doesn't appear on any of the Daredevil episodes. I have met and know the guy who was I don't know if he was the executor or the trustee, but right now he's kind of in charge of the Wally Wood estate creatively. I'm not going to name him. He's a publisher, though. He has published a lot of incredible books, and I've met him in person several times. He's given me some books to review. And I've tried to friend him on Facebook. He never accepts my requests. I think he also he annoyed me in 2016 during the election by being a neoliberal, but that's okay. A lot of people did, and they got annoyed by me. Let's not get into that. Still, he's a cool guy, and he has argued passionately and I believe accurately online that Marvel conceded Wally Wood's huge role in reshaping Daredevil early in his run, then it may open up the Wally Wood estate. And the implication maybe is this gentleman himself would be involved in litigating Marvel for, I don't know, some money or definitely for a permanent credit. And for some reason, Marvel won't do it. I mean, Marvel, like I said, they just, I believe that Jeff Lieb, who was in charge of those Marvel Studios TV series and Netflix shows and Hellstrom, etc., I believe that he would have credited Wally Wood, but this is my theory. I have no evidence. My theory is that Marvel said, no, Ixnay, Jeffy, don't do Wally Wood. That's a can of worms. Because, the reason that Jack Kirby's name is on the Marvel films is because the Kirby family sued. They sued in court, and they won. They got a nice cash settlement to help them out, which they deserve. Jack Kirby's grandson is kind of the trustee of the legacy, the creative legacy, and he's very in touch with fans. He's very in touch with what's going on. He's very aware of the import of this legacy, and he carries it out extremely well. I love that guy. And Marvel was forced to put, and part of this was because Stan Lee's testimony, which Marvel, I'm sure, was like grooming him. The lawyers were like, remember, you created all these characters for Marvel, or for hire, you own them. But Stan Lee, in getting out of giving credit to Kirby and Ditko and Wood and a lot of people over the years by copying to, whether it's true or not untrue, I got the worst memory in the world. Despite using that plea to do that, unfortunately, he also used it on the stand in trial, and it kind of backfired. So basically, all the Kirby creations have to bear Kirby's name. His name doesn't have to be first, though, unfortunately. As part of that, due to that controversy with Lee and his claims and Marvel's claims and Lee's memory or lack thereof, Stan Lee also has to get credited if he had anything to do with those specific creations, which basically he edited and published them. Also, anyone else who helped write those particular characters with Jack Kirby, i.e., the ones who actually wrote the dialogue that Jack Kirby didn't, that Stan Lee claimed he did, they also have to be credited. I know you think I'm being unkind to Stan Lee, but if you watch my past videos, especially what does a comic book creator actually do, you'll know that I'm giving Stan a lot of credit for a lot of shit. But I'm also taking away credit that he does not deserve. That's not rightfully his. So, for instance, on the Thor films, it's like created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Larry Lieber, I believe was on the Ragnarok. And Larry Lieber is Stan Lee's younger brother and did a lot of scripting and drawing and some co-creating back in the day. He came up with the name Tony Stark, for instance, for Iron Man. Jack Kirby created Iron Man. Steve Ditko designed the red and gold armor. Stan Lee edited the comics. No, to be fair, Stan Lee did write a lot of the early Iron Mans, basically because Don Heck's not a dialogue guy. Don Heck drew a lot of them. I would say if you pegged a creator Iron Man, it would be legit. It would be Jack Kirby, Larry Lieber, Stan Lee, and Don Heck, and sort of Steve Ditko for the classic armor. Again, Steve Ditko did for Iron Man what Wally Wood did for Daredevil. Retooled the early kind of cruder stuff that Kirby knocked out. And yeah, there is argument that Kirby co-created Daredevil as well. I've gone into all that as well. Into a more a fashion that Stan Lee and Martin Goodman thought was cooler, hipper, more commercially viable, more interesting. And their instincts are right, because for many years that Daredevil red costume that Wally Wood designed and the red and gold armor that Steve Ditko designed became the standard look for those characters, and still is. No matter how much Marvel, the movies and the comics tinker with those formulae, they're the same. You don't see them reverting permanently back to yellow and red for Daredevil or to, gray metal, rusty metal for Iron Man, though they did obviously homage it beautifully in the first Iron Man movie. But Steve Ditko doesn't get a credit on the new movie. Sony allowed good old Sam Raimi and Avi Arad to credit the Spider-Man trilogy, their Spider-Man trilogy, based on the Marvel comics, created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. I don't think they were required legally to do it. Steve Ditko's never litigated. Well, now he's dead. He hasn't been dead very long, though. And his estate, if such exists, because he was a veritable hermit among men, kind of, like a lot of characters he wrote, a loner. That litigation has never taken place, just like the Wally Wood. I think the Wally Wood would go forward if they thought they could, get a shot at it. But Ditko has a much bigger domain than Wally Wood. Ditko didn't just, retool Iron Man. Ditko created / co-created Spider-Man and numerous other characters, the Creeper, the Question, Hawk and Dove, and all by himself, by Stan Lee's own admission back in the day, Doctor Strange. And I went through that in the last video about Doctor Strange too. I think when talking about the 78 movie, is Doctor Strange was named Stephen with a PH because so is Steve Ditko. Steve Ditko created the whole story. He's called Doctor Strange, though, because that was the name that was laying around that Stan Lee wanted to use, that he had copped from another publisher, used once briefly, and him and Martin Goodman were like, hey, let's have a character named Doctor Strange, just like they did for Daredevil and Captain Marvel. Hey, if a good name's going to waste, don't let it. Let's use it, even if it is owned by someone else. Let's go for it, man. That was kind of the Goodman Lee philosophy back then. So that's how Doctor Strange came to be, and it was by Steve Ditko's hand. So I won't get into all those details because I have in other videos, but he's not credited, and I'm annoyed. Maybe he's credited in tiny credit at the end of the very, very long ending credits. By that time, I had to urinate really badly, as to be expected from a 2.5-hour movie. but I did see the final end credit scene. I was not remiss in my duty like I was in Moon Knight, where I fell asleep and I didn't even think about it before I did a video about it. I missed a great post-credit scene. I stayed till the bitter end. So by now you're like, is he ever going to talk about the movie itself? So the answer is no, I'm not. No, I'm kidding. My point is, Marvel did a bait and switch and hit the people with, this is going to be a multiversal romp. Actually, it is a story of two characters corrupted by black magic and darkness, and how each of them respectively deal with it. That's the story. That's the hook. The hook, when you read all of these plot synopses, Doctor Strange and his allies, Doctor Strange and his buddy, the Scarlet Witch and America Chavez, they romp through the multiverse. We don't know why, but they have adventures in the multiverse. There's some evil, and the credits are very vague. The way they're edited are very deceptive. Marvel, it makes you think from the trailers that he recruits Wanda. Wanda goes with him. She's a Scarlet Witch now. She's a superhero that looks like the character in the comics. It's called the Scarlet Witch. And they go across the universe and they battle Shimogaroth. And Shimogaroth is had to be renamed Gargantos because of this legal problem with Robert E. Howard's estate, and all this fanboy apocrypha and bullshit. Marvel helped disseminate it as a bait and switch for what the movie's really about and who the villain really is in the movie, and the reveal near time for the movie to come out. Some of those little 30-minute spots they were rushing out every 5 minutes were getting a little too on the nose, and I was fearing my beloved Wanda would actually be the villain. But that was like 2 days before the movie. Okay, so those spots were a little more not just on the nose; they were accurate compared to all the earlier hints and indications and promotional hype material. Wanda is the villain. Cat out of the bag. Spoiler number one, big one. Wanda the Scarlet Witch is the villain of the movie. I was saddened by this because I love Wanda. I love the character, and I love Elizabeth Olsen's portrayal of her. But this is what we have to deal with. But it's well done. There's a reason for this. That's one big bait and switch. The villain. The other one, like I said, what's the multiverse? What's the movie really about? The movie really about is that Scarlet Witch has been corrupted by black magic and wants the key to the multiverse to get her magically created sons back after the events of WandaVision. That's the spinoff for the fucking plot, everybody. Doctor Strange comes into it because Wanda has found a multiversally constant being, a being who exists only one singular version of her in one universe that has been destroyed, that she herself accidentally destroyed. This character called America Chavez, and Wanda is pursuing her for her power to cross the multiverse so she can find her sons. So how does Doctor Strange get into this? Well, Doctor Strange saves this girl by chance or by fate, America Chavez, who's come to our universe, and she's been pursued by Shimogaroth. Okay, let's get this straight. Marvel decided they were afraid of Robert E. Howard's legal department, even though they've been calling this character Shimogaroth as a copyrighted Marvel character for 45 years, even in the Marvel vs. Capcom video games. He became a surprise cult favorite character late in his life. I'm proud of the old one-eyed boy. And even after the fact, Marvel's reacquired the sole license to publish the Robert E. Howard characters again, and to the extent where Conan the Barbarian is actually crossing over with Marvel characters, like on an active basis, like joining the Ancient Avengers or whatever, the evil event or the Dark Avengers or whatever. He never, Conan himself, back in the day when Marvel owned him originally, all the comics rights, they made him popular enough to warrant a film. And Roy Thomas was a big part of that. He wrote that series for 10 years. He shepherded that film. And he himself never had Conan face to face ever meet a Marvel character, a universe character. They had Cole do it. They had Red Sonja do it. They had characters who were like Shuma-Gorath, who were kind of marginal. Cthulhu mythos, Lovecraft, Howard both worked on the Cthulhu mythos. Characters like Kulan Gath, who are owned by Marvel, but were also part of that mythos. But they had Conan in flashbacks appear in other people's comics, but they never had Conan like meet Doctor Strange or whatever, much less meet Wolverine and join a team with Wolverine and Elektra. Which in a way is an interesting concept. The art looks good, but I fear the story will suck, so I'm not going to go there. Same with the Million BC Avengers. There's aspects of that I like too, but aspects that I don't care for, but I do like the art. So yeah, Conan, they own Conan now. They can do anything they want with Conan in comics and probably in movies. I mean, I would assume that Disney now has the rights since they own Marvel. So Disney could make a Conan film, I would assume. Maybe I'm wrong. But my point is that for some reason Marvel's characterized as being afraid of the Robert E. Howard estate and didn't want to call this creature Shuma-Gorath. That may or may not be true. The point is, it was circulated that he was called Gargantos after a slightly similar-looking, very minor Submariner creature, also created by Roy Thomas, I believe. He's not called anything in the movie. So Marvel solved it. Raimi took care of this. He's Shuma-Gorath, obviously. We know that, but he's not called anything. So, I'm vindicated yet again. Me and the Shuma-Gorath fans are vindicated yet again. No Gargantos. Fuck that. So, again, the fan bros jump the gun. The media outlets who report this stuff that they make up, much like CNN, Fox, MSNBC do about real world news. These sites like Screen Rant and Comic Book Resources and IGN and IO9 and comicbook.com and we could go on and on. There's a couple of good clickbait sites. I don't even want to call them that actually have legit news I found by accident recently. One is called thedirect.com. So far, they've been accurate on everything, and they have not had these overly ridiculously opinionated takes or fanfic speculations. Hopefully, they won't get corrupted like the other ones. I found them by accident doing research on this very film. So props to thedirect.com. Down with fanbro clickbait sites. So, yes. So Shuma-Gorath tries to kill America. Doctor Strange takes care of him with Wong's help. Wong being still the Sorcerer Supreme after the Spider-Man film. And that's how Doctor Strange gets involved. And so he goes, hey, this is witchcraft. Let's find the Scarlet Witch. So that's when the bait and switch happens. Because at first she agrees to help, kind of. And then it turns out everything's an illusion. She's really evil. She's got the Darkhold, which we saw her with at the end of WandaVision, the kind of Marvel equivalent of the Necronomicon. I believe the Darkhold was also created by Roy Thomas because it figures heavily into the origin of Werewolf by Night, a Roy Thomas creation, who will soon also apparently be adapted to the Marvel Universe. So, yeah, here we go again. So much to say, so little time. I think that's the deal. That's Wanda motivates the plot. She's the engine of the plot. Doctor Strange comes in to save America Chavez from Wanda, who's going to use her multiverse powers to get what she wants. And Doctor Strange, in the meantime, has to dally with, by going to the multiverse, meeting versions of himself that have been corrupted by the Darkhold, by black magic. And then ultimately, he himself has to use the Darkhold and some black magic in order to win the day against Wanda. So that's really what the movie's fucking about. Okay, so now that we know what the movie's actually about, we'll get into the multiverse thing, and I'll just talk about the things I liked and disliked. Well, I liked just about everything about the movie, except no Ditko credit. I dislike all the dislike of the movie. That's at least as much what this video is about as it is a review of the movie, is a repudiation of other reviews of the movie. I spit upon thee, a pox upon all your houses, Spin Bros. And I love this movie. I think they made the correct narrative decisions, the correct character choices, and they vastly expanded the Marvel Universe. We can call it the MCU or the Marvel Multiverse, whatever. When I say the Marvel Universe, I mean the canon of books, of comic books that were called the Marvel Universe for most of my life. And this is being translated into the MCU or the MCMU, whatever you want to fucking call it now. But it's all Marvel Universe. That's the concept. And uh, there's a ton of new stuff introduced from legit, translated either accurately and or respectfully at least, in an interesting fashion to live action finally. So there's a lot of Easter eggs I'm sure I've missed. The fan bros have picked up on. That's all they're really good for is picking out Easter eggs I missed. Then they give you a 3-page summation about how it was done wrong by Marvel. Fuck them. We're still going to watch all their movies, but fuck them to death. So, I love these people. There are a bunch of them that I noticed, and a lot of them are Doctor Strange, endemic to Doctor Strange. They really flesh out the lore of Doctor Strange, and many of them are way beyond Easter eggs. They're actually either minor plot points or exposition or casual conversation, things that let you learn about Doctor Strange's world, and how better to do that than for our Doctor Strange to meet all these alternate versions and see the paths he could have gone down, and in differentiating himself from the other Doctor Stranges, he tells us, the audience, more about he himself, all of which is from the comic books, very accurate stuff, except for the Christine Palmer stuff, but I'll get into that. And then we see at what points the alternate Doctor Stranges diverged. So we're greeted with a few different alternate universes. The movie starts with a character they call Defender Strange. I assume called that because he resembles the Doctor Strange design employed by Matt Fraction in his run on the Defenders in the 2000s, more of the red and black, sleeker design. That's what that Doctor Strange looked like, so I guess that's why they call him that. They even made a Defender Strange action figure. It's funny, though, because he dies in the first 5 minutes of the movie. That's really how the movie is introduced, is that they're trying to save the Book of the Vishanti, this allegedly mythical magic book. Now, in the comic books, the Book of the Vishanti is very much a part of Strange lore, and Doctor Strange, of course, not only knows it, he's read it, he's used this magic numerous times. It's a keystone of the magic that he and Ancient One and similar characters and Sorcerers Supreme draw upon. But in the movies, it's a little different. In the movies, it's like a mythical book. It wasn't something that the Ancient One taught Stephen in the first movie. I can't even remember if they referred to it in the first movie. Maybe they did. And even in that movie, we get the idea that, well, we're told that the Ancient One draws upon some of the power of the Dark Dimension, which violates her, I don't know, white magic or whatever that she's doing, whatever they want to call their magic. I don't think they really have a name for it yet. But she's not corrupted, though her I guess you could say her judgment's corrupted, which is apt because that Ancient One character is kind of a joke anyway. We'll go way beyond the casting, the miscasting, but I really think the Ancient One was poorly done, poorly written, directed, and acted in that film to be like the key character to Doctor Strange's mythos, to teaching him magic, to opening this world to him. And a lot of the exposition in the first movie, where she opens that world to him, I mean, it's fairly well written, it's fairly interesting, and of course, it's spoken in a very Shakespearean tone by the great Tilda Swinton, because they didn't want some Asian guy, messing it up. I'm being sarcastic, Marvel, and yeah, that's all true, and that is the foundational point. They never really talk about black magic per se, like not dark dimension energies, but real black magic, as in the Darkhold. We don't really encounter that until we watch WandaVision and we start getting into that, where Agatha Harkness, in her exposition, explains all this toward the end of the series. And Wanda retires to the woods to study the Darkhold, apparently, and become the Scarlet Witch completely, and to take that mantle. But we're hoping she's going to do it and use it for good. And she's learned from what she did. So not really. So actually, she's kind of evil, but she's single-minded. She just basically wants to thumb through the universe like a book and find a page where Tommy and Billy really exist, and they're not just magical constructs that she conjured in Westview or whatever that town, idyllic town she conjured for her and Vision to live in WandaVision. Vision is mentioned once in this show, in this movie. Never glimpsed and never talked about, though. It looks like she's moved on from the idea that Vision can exist, even though now Vision has been reborn in WandaVision, albeit somewhat altered. And I don't think either Wanda didn't know that at the end of WandaVision, or didn't care, or didn't think it was really the real Vision. I don't know. It's kind of weird. The Vision she conjured, who really thought he himself was the real Vision, even, who actually suspected something was wrong with the whole setup that created him, that Vision kind of finally dissolved away at the end of WandaVision, and the all-white Vision, reconstructed Vision, split after having a talk with him. So hopefully that'll be picked up later, and the white Vision will be in the Avengers. That's my hope. As to whether he'll ever be with Wanda again after this movie, I sincerely doubt it. So, Wanda's really gone off the fucking deep end. I mean, she's trying to be, she's Elizabeth Olsen acts her in this great kind of tightrope act between, some of her former heroism, nobility, and kindness, and her very stern, she can turn on a dime, get what she wants persona. Like we saw her in WandaVision when she goes into the facility where Vision's been dismantled and just blows everybody away and takes Vision. Where she faces off against that idiot in Sword, I can't remember the stupid character's name, who was revealed to be some kind of corrupt individual, which we knew anyway, as opposed to the good Sword agents, Monica Rambeau and Jimmy Woo. Wanda's a badass. Wanda is a badass fucking character. I told Tim Tolbert, I think maybe she's an anti-heroine. She might be the closest to an anti-heroine the MCU has. I mean, when I say anti-heroine, I mean like a Wolverine, Punisher kind of, like, yeah, sometimes I'm going to help you guys and sometimes I'm not. Maybe almost like Doctor Doom. But nobody's going to fuck with me. Bottom line, and when I see right or wrong, I'm going to do what I need to do. And, other than killing people, and shredding the multiverse, there are elements of that in Charlie Cox's Daredevil, too. He doesn't take lives. He has a line. And, of course, that's well delineated in the classic, beautiful, brilliant exchange between him and the Punisher in Daredevil Season 2. Highly recommend watching the Daredevil series on Disney Plus. Now you can. So, but I'm warning you, it's rated R. Sorry. But, here's the deal. I think I got used to the ruthlessness of Wanda. I got used to, it was delivered so well. Raimi gets that take on the character. And once again, and I want to emphasize this movie is a very great adaptation from the comics. Every major plot point is pretty faithfully rendered, except for the Christine Palmer angle we inherited from the unfortunate first Doctor Strange movie. But even that is adapted to work to the favor of the other material that is adapted. So let me explain. So in the beginning, Doctor Strange, before he has to save America Chavez, who gets into our universe, even though Defender Strange seemingly dies. So he was sucked into our universe too, but he's dead. Shoma Gorath is coming to kill her. She doesn't know why. Before he has to save her, he goes to the wedding of Christine Palmer and her boyfriend. It's a new character. Probably not a smart idea, but you're seeing that Steven has now, after his last few years of being a do-gooder, it's kind of rubbed off on him. So even though he still has that cynical veneer, he isn't the same guy he was when he was the callous surgeon. And he did love Christine, even though they don't really go into it much in the first movie. And I was kind of glad, because I was like, why is this love interest character here? Doctor Strange's great love is Clea. He doesn't have a love interest until he meets her. Even the 1978 movie, as much as they changed the circumstances for it. They got that right away. I mean, they even wove it into the story. Doctor Strange and Clea are destined. They have a psychic bond. They're destined to be together. They just threw all that out the window. But now it's kind of back in the window. We'll get to that at the very end of the movie. There's their take on that material. The current take, the current MCU crew take on the Clea situation. So in this reality anyway, and in all realities, they make it clear that Christine was his first great love. Rachel McAdams is that her name? She has a lot more to do in this movie. She's a very beautiful woman, I have to say. I mean, I always thought she was very cute, and I thought she was very attractive in her season on True Detective, where she played a really great character. I think that's her best work. She was, cute again, not as cute as in True Detective, but, just pleasant looking, not my personal favorite type. But she didn't catch my eye in Doctor Strange, and nor in the beginning of this does she when she reappears at her wedding. But when we get into Earth 838, Christine Palmer, with this awesome red hair and this kind of weird nurse's outfit, she's pretty hot. So anyway, and her character, that character, is a major character in the film. So he sees Christine, he's got all these regrets, and so they're starting to get into that human side of him, and we get into this whole recurring question: are you happy? Have you ever been happy? And it's pretty simple-minded and puerile, and I don't know if the original screenwriter came up with it, or Sam Raimi did, or Kevin Feige, or somebody, but they're like, let's have some theme here, some emotional theme, like, is Steven ever happy? And then at the end, he's finally happy, but then something fucked up happens. It's the story of his life, and our lives too, really. My life, certainly. They didn't really need to go there, but that's okay. So they have the wedding, and he has this awkward scene with this strange actor I wasn't familiar with, who I guess is in the first Doctor Strange movie, Dr. West or somebody. I forgot the actor, something Stolberg. He's a very unlikable character and a very unlikable and peculiar looking actor. And it was one of Marvel's attempts at humor. And it just really, they gave this guy. I get it when Sam Raimi lets Bruce Campbell have his little day to do his thing, because they have this thing together. Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, they always have. And Bruce Campbell has that in this movie too, a spot, a cameo. And this character, though, who's highly billed in the credits, but isn't in the movie more than 3 minutes, has his little spot, his little shtick. This is one of the few things I didn't like about the movie. And I thought he came off as an asshole and a moron, and maybe that's the point of his character. I mean, the dramatic setup is that, yeah, I knew you back then, Doctor Strange, and now you're a superhero, but how come, you didn't save us better during the Infinity War? I know you're blipped away, man. I'm paraphrasing wildly, but this is the gist of this ridiculous characterization. Yeah, man, I know, but I lost my cat, I lost my wife, you could have done better, man. Why? It was the only decision. And he's like, yeah, it's the only decision. And of course, we graphically saw that play out in Infinity War. It was literally the only decision. And it takes you a long, long time. It took me a long, long time, anyway, to figure out why. But to me, the why is because by letting Stark live at that juncture, Stark is the one who invents time travel. Stark is the one who undoes it. Stark is the one who snaps Thanos completely out of existence for good. That's why Doctor Strange did what he did, gave the time stone for Stark's life. That's my theory. That's just a theory. Okay, I haven't read confirmation, so don't print that as news. But anyway, that particular encounter was really kind of an annoying early part of the movie, but it was over quickly. Unfortunately, they didn't kill that character off, but at least we don't have to suffer through him anymore. I hope we never will again. I hope I'll never see that actor again, to be honest. I'm sure he has to eat. He's got a family. More power to him. Keep acting, dude, but just I don't want to see you in a movie again. So yeah, then everything begins to unfold as I said it does. And when we get to the juncture point where we realize Wanda's evil and she wants Chavez, Wong is protecting her at Camartage. Now, we see a lot more of Camartage than we did in the first movie. That is from the comic books. That is a Ditko creation. That is a fictional city in Nepal where the Ancient One lived, where Doctor Strange was trained, and Mordo was trained. All that's comics accurate. And, Wong, of course, being the Sorcerer Supreme, obviously, Camartage, we've seen in the first movie, it was almost like kind of like a monastery where they trained upcoming mystics. But, that was not really an important element in the original comics version of Doctor Strange. In that, it was pretty much a stronghold for the Ancient One, for a place for the Sorcerer Supreme. And he did gather and have disciples and servants like Hamir and Wong. Now, Hamir appears in this movie again. He's a very, very minor character. And he's not Wong's father like in the comics, or he's not a disciple of the Ancient One directly, though he is closer to that role in the first movie than Wong himself. Wong in the films is more like Wong in the 1978 TV movie. He has hair and a facial hair instead of clear, shaven head, shaven face, and he's not a manservant. He's a disciple, and he knows magic. So in that sense, the first movie did a solid by adapting something from that movie, 78 movie, rather than from the comics. So that's why I kind of tolerated that iteration of Wong. And I've never really liked this iteration of Wong. I thought he was one of the misfires about the first movie, other than what I just stated, which I thought was a legitimate translation. And of course, they wanted to skirt around the Asian manservant thing, but they even were politically correct enough to do that in the 1978 movie. Why do you call him master? Asked Doctor Strange. And Wong is like, because he taught me, but he's not like a slave. They pointed that out way back then. So for Kevin Feige, and those guys to labor over this, we can't have an Asian guy be the servant. We can't have an Asian guy be the Ancient One. Stereotypes, China market, And I read extensive interviews with Cargill, the screenwriter of the first Doctor Strange, where he just bends himself into these pretzel knots, justifying his own racism about this issue. Anyway, I've talked about that at length, at nauseum, I'm sure, to you guys. But my point is, I liked Wong in this movie. His character, this iteration of Wong, was redeemed in my eyes. He's more of a rounded character. He's more of he's a good foil for Doctor Strange. There were hints of that in the Doctor Strange appearances in Spider-Man and Infinity War, but it's more full-blown than this, as it should be, because this is Doctor Strange's movie, and hence Wong's movie also. Wong was also flying solo at Shang-Chi, by the way, and acquitted himself pretty well. So Wong is protecting Camartage and protecting America Chavez, and she doesn't know how to use her powers. She comes from this other universe, that's kind of like ours, and there's like stars everywhere. That's the symbol, because her name's America and stars are her symbol. Get it? This is a Marvel creation, straight from the comics. It's not my invention, nor Sam Raimi's, or even Kevin Feige's. It's whoever created America Chavez for Marvel. I don't remember. She's the character from recent years and became kind of popular, which I don't really care about that stuff. Like for instance, with this thing with Ms. Marvel, I could care less about it. But I will say this. I'm sorry, movie is distracting me. A really great movie I have on the background is that. Sorry, it's a little intense here. I'll explain that later too. Sorry. So yeah, America Chavez, they show her origin in flashback, and apparently her origin's been retconned at least once by Marvel in the short time she's been around. I learned all this in one of the Mary Marvelites videos. Check out his channel, Mary Marvelite. He's incredible. He does history in the Marvel Universe. A great channel. And apparently America's story was retconned already. Her origin changed. I believe the origin they show in the movie is the more recent canonical origin, and more recent or more popularized usually for power, which is basically that she can cross the multiverse. She basically punches holes in the universe, which I think is kind of a sideways jab at Superboy Prime, punching holes in the universe and changing continuity in Infinity Crisis by DC. Which a lot of people laughed about that. Like every time there's a gaffe in the comics, Superboy punched the walls of the universe again. It's kind of ridiculous. So in this case, she like punches and the star opens up and she goes into the multiverse. I mean, it sounds kind of cheesy. And even in the Marvel comics, it looks kind of cheesy, but Raimi does it. It looks pretty fucking cool. I have to say, I like, he pulls it off. And he shows her origin. She has two mothers. We don't know which are either. If it's her biological mother, it doesn't matter. Yes, they're married. This is just the way it is. And they wear stars. You know, it's kind of like Superman's family wears the S crest in the movie. So this is kind of like America Chavez's family wears the stars. I guess they live in an America of that period. But of course, America was named after a Spanish person. America is a Spanish name of its own. You don't want to be named after the country, like America Herrera is not the name of the actress who played in Ugly Betty. I like that name for a girl, for a Spanish girl. America. It's a cool name, America Chavez. So her character's well done. From what little I know of her comic iteration, she's accurate. And they, you know, I understand that Saudi Arabia banned this movie over her scene of her origin, and I read in several accounts, and I even saw on camera some interviews with actors at the red carpet premiere of Doctor Strange parroting this account and, of course, slamming it and calling it misfortunate, which it is, unfortunate. The Saudi Arabia banned Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness because of the lesbian mothers angle. And it's funny because the fan bro accounts I read and the accounts by these people on camera all said that it was 12 minutes of the movie and that it was that America herself was gay in the movie and that they couldn't handle it, and you know that's their loss, and they should have said fuck Saudi Arabia, but then they probably wouldn't work in Hollywood again since we're so like that. America the country, not the character. It's like that with unfortunately like that with Saudi Arabia. The scene is 3 minutes tops. The mothers are married. They're obviously gay. Who cares? There's no reference to whether America's gay or not. There's no kissing, you know, between the mothers. There's no making out. You know, there's no cunnilingus. You know, come on, Saudi Arabia. Though everything about a woman freaks Saudi Arabian men out. It doesn't have to be cunnilingus. It can just be, oh my God, their face. I'm feeling lust. As I'm making fun of their culture because I think it's a misogynistic and hateful and warmongering culture, and I don't like it. So anyway, I don't like our warmongering culture or aspects of ours either. So there. So anyway, that was again a non-controversy that was turned. I don't want to say a minor controversy that was turned into a big one. It was a non-controversy. Saudi Arabia turned it into a little controversy. The people who reacted against Saudi Arabia turned it into a big controversy. I'm trying to kind of keep it real here. So I feel like sometimes that's like some duty of mine, but in these videos is just keeping it real. So America's handled well, and Wanda won't stop chasing her, and Wong is protecting her, and Wanda kills a bunch of people in Camartage. It's rough, man. She captures Wong, kind of tortures Wong. She's really fucked up, and she wants America's power. She wants it permanently because, according to her, what if my boys get sick? You know, in some other universe, there's a cure. In every universe, there's a possibility everywhere. Because at first, Doctor Strange and Wong are like, you know, your kids never existed. You created them, that's from the comic books. Doctor Strange himself in the comic books. Unfortunately, written by Brian Michael Bendis, who created this whole angle of retcon that the kids never. Well, he didn't create the exact angle that the kids never existed. That was, I think, a John Byrne creation. Two guys who love to smash other writers' good ideas are John Byrne and Brian Michael Bendis. So Byrne decided the Vision wasn't really the Vision. The Vision was dismantled and didn't love Wanda anymore. Not only that, the kids were created from Master Pandemonium, and This is on West Coast Avengers. By the way, I'm selling my West Coast Avengers issues on my eBay very cheap. Please buy them. I need the money. I have the first appearance of Master Pandemonium, who figures into this story in the comics, not in the movie. $12, I think. Make me an offer. Yeah, all that went through with Byrne, and then of course Bendis said Wanda can't handle it. She's learned the kids weren't real. Agatha Harkness or somebody slipped up and told her the truth. She went crazy. It turns out her powers are vaster than we ever knew. They're not just mutant hexes with probability changes. They're not just her trained in dark arts under Agatha Harkness or magic, whatever, real magic, which that happened in a comic, and then they kind of kept changing that back and forth. They decided her mutant ability, enhanced by her magic, is that she can alter reality, and that's how she created the twins, which in a way that makes some kind of sense. But they've done the best they can. Marvel Entertainment and Kevin Feige and company have done the very best they can to salvage a cohesive, coherent, decent plot from all that bullshit. And they did, and it's called WandaVision. And they did, just as with the movie Civil War, they took excrement and they turned it into gold. They are alchemists. Kevin Feige is like the alchemist supreme of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I got to give him props for that. He doesn't always do the right thing, but he usually does. And when he doesn't, he at least cops to it years later. And so, the deal is Wanda corrects Wong and Doctor Strange, because Wanda, we're finding she is more powerful than Wong or Doctor Strange singularly. Probably. She's obviously more powerful than Wong. But Wong gives her, he gives her a little fight, but yeah, she's more powerful than all of Camartage. And she corrects them correctly and says, no, I've looked into all the universes. That's how powerful I am, motherfuckers. Y'all just now learning about the multiverse. I've been studying the multiverse since the end of WandaVision, motherfuckers. So yes, there's a Billy and a Tommy that are alive, and I'm going to go get them. So that's the deal. There is at least one universe that we concretely see where we have a Wanda bereft of vision, but raising Tommy and Billy in a house like they had in Westview or whatever. And really, she's a lot more like pre-Scarlet Witch Wanda. She doesn't have the Darkhold. She's not corrupted because she's not having to reach to those or lower herself to those depths to hold on to those children. Because the ultimate implication to me, for a lot of fans, not fan bros, but legit fans have come to about WandaVision is, again, the twist is Agatha was the villain all along. Well, the real twist for a lot of people was that Wanda really was always the villain. She was the bad guy, and that Gestapo-like government fucker from S.W.O.R.D. was right. She was a menace to be exterminated. We must take out Maximoff. The guy was a ridiculous character and actor. So, but purposefully so. That's discouraging. I see Wanda as the hero of WandaVision. But I saw Wanda as the hero in the comics, too. I saw her as a victim. I saw her as manipulated by forces she didn't understand and then delved into and could not control. The real bad thing she did in the comics was say no more mutants. That was pretty horrible. And then she kind of split after doing all that damage. Well, she also kind of fucked up the Avengers and killed a few of them too, including the Vision. Good way to go, Bendis. Way to go, man. You got some great plot ideas. You'll go far. And he did. He's like a multimillionaire because of sales of that kind of crap. But anyway, like I said, Marvel took a sow's ear and made a silk purse. And so let's move forward. So I think taking the dramatic potential of this dilemma, however wrongheadedly it was conceived in the comics, it's brilliantly done in WandaVision. It's brilliantly done in this movie, in my opinion. And I don't know, man. I think her dilemma, I feel for her. She ends up, there's a thing called dream walking they introduce, which is kind of like a sort of a black magic thing. I think she found from the Darkhold. Now, see, of course, they're trying to find the Book of the Vishanti so they can counteract the Darkhold and defeat Wanda and close up this multiverse thing and save America. But Strange himself isn't even sure it exists, but she knows, America knows it exists because it existed in her universe. So it must exist in some other universe. It gets kind of complicated, this dream walking thing. It's like possessing an alternate universe version of yourself. Because, and it intersects with the realm of dream. No, they don't mention the villain Nightmare. That was another rumor, Nightmare. I even heard Nightmare was going to be played by Johnny Depp briefly. And Cleo was going to be played by Amber Heard. No, I'm kidding about that. But Nightmare is not in the movie. But Dream is a part of it. And, they do mention Dream and Nightmare and the nature of Dream and Nightmare. And that's an important part of surrealism, surrealist art and creations, as you see in David Lynch's material. It's the dream world is a portal, or one of the most popular comic books of all time, Sandman by Neil Gaiman, published by DC. That's the same idea. In Dream, everything is real. And that world is as real in its way as this world, or it's a portal to other real worlds or other unreal worlds that you can interpret as real or not. And this movie plays with that logic. Raimi uses dreams as like an intersection point of the dream walking. And that's the thing, is because in the beginning, the thing that happens to America Chavez and Defender Strange, Stephen Strange of Earth 616, which is the designate of the MCU Earth, as it is the Marvel Universe, main Marvel Universe in the comic books Earth. 616, by the way, is a magical number, and it was given to the Prime Marvel Universe by Alan Moore in his very rare work for Marvel and Captain Britain, where he kind of went into the multiverse thing in that one pretty heavily. And this is like way back, like 35 years ago. Moore is everywhere. All roads lead to Alan Moore and Twin Peaks. So 616, our Stephen wakes up, and he's had that dream. He's dreamed it, but when he meets America, it's like, wait a minute, I know you from my dream. She's like, no, it really happened. And so this is when we start getting into the Lynchian surrealist territory, and we really get heavy into the multiverse, the concepts of the multiverse, but also the visuals of the multiverse, and how it introduces visually and or through exposition a ton of Marvel Universe from the comics concepts. Some in the form of Easter eggs, some full-blown plot points. So him and America begin their punching their way through the multiverse, and they do the kaleidoscopic through the multiverse. And visually, it's incredible. I mean, it's up there with Everything Everywhere All at Once, which also was about the multiverse. To me, it was the Russo brothers' reactions to Marvel, their experience with Marvel in a way. I got into that in that video. Everything Everywhere All at Once video. Check that out. So yeah, I mean, they briefly became animated characters. The film stock turns to grainy 16 millimeter. They split apart. They turn into other creatures. There's all these colors. It's very phantasmagoric. It's very Ditko. It's very surreal. It's what a Doctor Strange movie needed to be and finally is. So even though the multiverse is part of the plot, in the sense that Wanda wants to use the multiverse for her own aims, it's not the ends itself. But as a concept along the way to try to be used by Wanda or counteracted by Doctor Strange in America, it's a centerpiece. It's legitimately, it's visually what tells the story. And that's what makes this like the most cinematic Marvel movie ever, I think. Marvel MCU movie ever. And so they trip through the multiverse, and along the way they bump into things. I wouldn't say the first thing that I noticed was they bump into the Living Tribunal. Now, this is a character from a long ago issue of Strange Tales, created by Roy Thomas and Marie Severin, a pivotal Marvel Universe cosmic entity character. And also a character that, according to the comics, exists singularly, like America Chavez, in all universes. The same in all universes, like outside of the multiverse. So they bump into him, and his head floats above his body, kind of like Khonshu in Moon Knight, except this effect is a little more seamless. That's how he looks in the comics. In this one, they kind of bump into his head, kind of going through all this kind of Ditko-like flotsam, and there's something else that you kind of see the edge of, and I guess that's supposed to be his shoulder. So yes, the Living Tribunal is introduced in this film. So he was introduced in that long ago issue of Strange Tales, which now is worth a lot of money. First of all, because he's a very weird and persistent character who gained importance in the Marvel Universe during the Infinity Gauntlet original stories by Jim Starlin, upon which the movies are based. The other reason is the cover, not the cover, but a panel in that comic book was used by Pink Floyd as a graphic for their album, A Saucer Full of Secrets. And so for those two reasons, that comic book was worth hundreds of dollars. Fortunately, I had it in good condition. It was one of those, I'll never sell this, but yeah, I got it. I had to sell it. I got $275 for it, I think. I desperately needed it. So, basically, I'm using, my comic collection now to like pay my homeowners association, which is my single biggest bill, which I'm in trouble with them now, and I'll get into that in another video. It's really bad, but anyway, because they're relentless. They're worse than the landlord. I own my house. What the fuck? Yeah, I know. Somebody needs to reel me in. Mike Fiance used to say that, reel me in, reel me in. And I said it recently to a friend of mine who digressed a lot, named Serena, a very special person. And I said the same thing to her. I'm gonna have to reel you in because she digressed even more than I do in these videos. So there are key points. They arrive at a couple of key worlds, Earths in the multiverse, and that's where this plot kind of draws towards its inevitable where it's going. And one world they get to, this is like the key world, I guess. It's Earth 838. Spent a lot of time here. Earth 838 is something, again, I haven't heard many fanboys talk about, probably because that's where you learn the real nature of everything that's happening with the multiverse and how it plays into all this. And it also debunks all of the mythology accrued about the Illuminati and that scenario accrued based on Marvel trailers, based on fan bros, and I even helped disseminate the disinformation. And I apologize. I'll probably get booted off YouTube. I'll probably have Joe Biden monitoring me for disinformation dissemination. This is the age. This is not the age of the information age. This has now become the disinformation age, where if you say the truth or what you believe to be the truth, it's disinformation automatically because it doesn't fit a narrative or political agenda. So in that sense, I played into the dominant narrative agenda of the fan bros. I deeply apologize. All the tools I had to work with. The Illuminati is not a council of beings from other multiverses that are alternate versions of these other Marvel Universe characters you've either seen before, like Peggy Carter and Maria Rambeau, or characters from the comics you have yet to see, like Reed Richards and Charles Xavier. It's not that at all. The Illuminati is pretty much what it was in the comic books. It was all characters formed on one Earth. In the comic books, Earth 616. In the film, all these characters are native to Earth 838. They were formed because these guys thought they knew better and we're going to organize this thing to say, hey, we're going to cope with these insane threats going forward and neutralize them because they're dangers to the whole multiverse. They're dangers to the Earth. The comics is like dangers to the Earth, dangers to the universe. And this one is like dangers to the universe, dangers to the multiverse. But they themselves do not live outside the multiverse. They're not like the Time Variant Authority. They're nothing like I imagined from the trailers. Mordo is not taking Doctor Strange to some other dimension like Loki. He's not arrested for some infraction like Loki was. All of that is things fans and fan bros alike, me and the former, assumed wrongly to be the case. And Marvel, damn it, bait in and switched us brilliantly. So why were the Illuminati formed on Earth 838? I'm not going to get into why they were formed on Earth 616 because I covered that in my last MCU video. But the adaptation is essentially, like I said, the same kind of purpose. But the key event, what's it called in a script? I can't remember. The exciting event. No, that's not it. You know what I mean. The inciting incident that caused this is that on that Earth, Thanos was a threat to creation, just as on Earth 616. So Doctor Strange had to try to defeat Thanos. Doctor Strange of that Earth. And he's clean shaven. Other than that, he looks pretty much like, the one we see in 616 in this movie. He organized the Illuminati. Now, in the comic books, the ever arrogant Tony Stark did. And since, in the movies, Strange is arrogant, apparently in Earth 838, he's even more arrogant and cocky and smartass than on Earth 616 in the movies. And he organized the Illuminati. So there is no Tony Stark or Iron Man or Tom Cruise as Iron Man in this movie. Another one of those things that's not true. I just read today on Facebook a commenter stating categorically they know for a fact that the Blu-ray of this movie is going to have the deleted scenes, which include Tony Stark as Superior Iron Man, that were deleted because the script was changed. It happened, and we, again, these people. I mean, I'm in therapy. These people need to fucking be in therapy. And so Doctor Strange organized the Illuminati, and the Illuminati and they introduced themselves to our Doctor Strange, because basically the Illuminati on our Earth 838, one of them captures Doctor Strange and America, and that one is Mordo, because basically they go to see the mansion, and they see, the Doctor Strange's Greenwich Village, Bleecker Street mansion with the big sigil window. And there's a big statue of Doctor Strange, and he's considered a hero. And the placard reads that he saved the world. He gave his life saving the world from Thanos. So, promotional materials for this movie called that version Supreme Strange, which we first glimpse in the statue, and then we glimpse the real version in flashback in a sec. So, Mordo is now the Sorcerer Supreme. And unlike in the movie, the original, the prior Doctor Strange film, where he's just called Mordo and you don't really know anything about him. In this movie, this 838 version is more fleshed out, and he's more like the comic book Mordo. He's not as evil as the comic book Mordo, but he's in a gray area by the nature of the Illuminati itself. They exist in a gray area morally, as they do in the comic books. And Mordo in this universe is called Baron Karl Mordo, and Doctor Strange is even like Carl. Like he didn't know Mordo even had another name, much less he was a Baron. And we didn't know Baron Zemo was a Baron until Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like Kevin Feige is like, let's introduce these royal characters like kind of carefully. It might offend somebody. Once they dig the character, then we'll reveal that they're royalty, they're barons, they're fabulously wealthy. I don't understand the logic of some of this, but whatever. So anyway, Baron Karl Mordo is the Sorcerer Supreme. He looks cool as shit. I can't pronounce the actor's name. Ledger. I can't. I love him. He was great in a movie called Dirty Strange Things. I think that was the name of it. Filthy. It had a Audrey tattoo. Dirty Pretty Things. Very sad and powerful, but ultimately, kind of. It was a great movie. My ex-wife got me in that movie. That's where I first saw him in a movie. And of course, he went on to fame in other movies like 12 Years a Slave, and of course was in Doctor Strange as Mordo. So he's grown his hair long, he has dreadlocks, and he is evoking the kind of gold and green colors that are the iconic colors of the character Mordo, the way Ditko designed him. And he has more facial hair. He looks a little more like the Ditko character. He's still cooler than the Ditko character, though, because Baron Mordo in the comics is kind of an annoying character. But I think that's his function. He's supposed to be like a sycophant to Dormammu, never really the the deadly villain that he fancies himself to be. But that's a characterization for another day. They made the uh, Earth 616 Mordo a villain at the end of the first movie, and I thought that's who we were gonna meet in this movie, and that's why he's working for the Illuminati. He's gonna use this as a way to destroy Strange. Well, I'm wrong about all of that. That Mordo never appears. The single name Mordo never appears in this movie. We are introduced to Baron Karl Mordo of Earth 838, who's a cooler character altogether. He's not a lackey of the Illuminati or an agent. He doesn't have a vendetta against Strange, but he is wary of Strange, and I'll explain why. First of all, he is the Sorcerer Supreme of this universe, as I said now, after Strange died in a Thanos-related incident. And so that's why he lives at the Sanctum Sanctorum. And as such, he took Doctor Strange's place in the Illuminati. Doctor Strange Supreme, he formed the Illuminati. The Illuminati are composed of Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. That's how he's introduced. Professor Charles Xavier, who we know, and is played by Patrick Stewart once again, as he was in 5 X-Men movies. Four X-Men movies and Logan. Also a cameo in the Wolverine. Also a cameo in Wolverine Origins. Okay, so he plays that character in 7 X-Men movies. Now he's back again. He is incredible. There apparently were people in the audience who didn't know he was going to be in the movie. The teenage girls next to me, who I thought were going to ruin my experience, they actually enriched it because they reacted emotionally to some of the same things I did. They really seemed to know all the movies too, but they didn't really know everything, and they didn't know the gossip in the comics apparently. And they were surprised to see Patrick Stewart as Doctor Strange, and the girl next to me went, "Oh, oh," and did that like, "Papa," And he's great in this. He's like the moral compass of the Illuminati. Something the comic book Illuminati, I guess the Black Panther kind of was, and so he quit, and the Captain America was in it, and so he quit. But in the comics, Xavier never is. But Xavier in the movies, generally portrayed by Patrick Stewart, not by that other guy, has been a very sage, wise, compassionate, paternal kind of figure to mutants and all humanity and the universe and everything. And Patrick Stewart has that effect on his fans. Even when he's playing Picard, he has a similar effect. But Xavier is very different than Picard. He's a gentler Picard. He can be strong when he needs to be. And he can be terse, but he's never an asshole like McAvoy's version could be. And in this movie, he is like the moral compass of the Illuminati, something desperately needed. Again, they took a dodgy concept of Bendis's and fleshed it out, took a look at it, see what works and what doesn't work, what are the good ideas here, and the not so good ideas here. And let's go with the good ideas and accentuate them and downplay or dispense the not so good ideas. So, excellent adaptation of the Illuminati, even though it doesn't have Tom Cruise as Iron Man. Sorry. Okay, the other 2 members of the Illuminati, 3, like I said, Baron Mordo, Professor Xavier, and Reed Richards. Okay, there's 2 others. Black Bolt, played again by Anson Mount, as I mentioned earlier, from the Inhumans TV series. So this is an alternate to that Black Bolt, who didn't wear a costume. And that Black Bolt may not even exist in the Earth 616 continuity anymore, canonically. Anyway, based on what Marvel has said about it. Whereas the Inhuman series wasn't very good, though it was an accurate adaptation, it was very poorly done. They did use Anson Mount, and he's cool, and the costume's accurate, and it's one of those things where it's iconic Kirby. Once again, it's like Mjolnir's design, Captain America's shield, too iconic to fuck with. Black Bolt is too iconic to fuck with. Too iconic Kirby. And they made an error in the show, and now they corrected it, and I'm happy about that. And he has the same power. And like in the show, they don't really downplay the power. Where he speaks, he's mute, but when he speaks, he can destroy anything with his voice. So this is pretty cool how they do that. So the other two members of the Illuminati are Peggy Carter, aka Captain Carter / Captain America. I call her Captain Britain because she's got a British flag on her shield. And she's a badass in this. And of course, she ironically founded S.H.I.E.L.D. In the movies, in the MCU. So she's an important character. It'd be like if Nick Fury was in the Marvel Comics Illuminati, which he probably should have been. Then they have Captain Marvel, who I guess because she's so powerful, having the powers of one of the Infinity Stones and having like cosmic awareness. But in this alternate world, instead of Carol Danvers getting that power, it was her friend Maria Rambeau, played by Lasha Lively, mother of Monica Rambeau, who we met in WandaVision, who now has some powers herself and will appear in the next Captain Marvel movie. Now, I originally reported erroneously in my last video about this that it was Monica Rambeau, and that it made sense since Monica Rambeau in the comics was called Captain Marvel for a while. I fucked up bad. All I saw were her energized form. And then I saw one distant shot. It was a black lady. And, I'm sorry, or, I don't think all black people look alike. I just was like, or black women look alike. I just was like, oh, well, Monica Rambeau is Captain Marvel. There's a black lady and she's glowing and she's got the powers. So she's Monica Rambeau. And I couldn't tell her hairstyle from all the energy shit around her, all the CGI embodying her. That was my bad. I apologize. That was not an error born of malice toward the character or any kind of latent racism. I will say this, though, and this comment is also not born of any malice or latent racism, but the way she's portrayed in this film, she's an asshole. Her character is kind of like the smart-ass, mean asshole of the Illuminati. So I guess she performs the function of, well, in the comics, most of them are like that. Namor, Tony Stark. Anyway, so she embodies the Illuminati as a negative, like, authoritarian force, which they are in the comic books. And I guess picking her, not because she's Captain Marvel, not because she's a black lady, but she is a military lady. That's an important part of her character, as is a part of Carol's character. If there was the 616 Illuminati, I guess I would expect Captain Marvel, to be on it. So Maria Rambeau's kind of, hard ass. Now Peggy Carter, of course, also comes from a military background, formed S.H.I.E.L.D., etc. Got her powers ostensibly from the American and/or British government, and/or in tandem. But she's still Peggy Carter. She's still cool, and she's still hot. And I really like this incarnation of the character. And I didn't see the What If episode, and I really like this incarnation of the character. And I gotta say, these two women are pretty tough. They hold out longer than the guys. I mean, obviously, Captain Marvel, because she's the single most powerful member. As far as just sheer energy power, she can do a lot of shit. She's almost unbeatable. Just like Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. And Peggy Carter is like that because she's like Captain America was. She's got that indomitable spirit she won't give up. Like when Steve Rogers stops Thanos' fist for like a second and he's struggling and Thanos kind of looks at him like, damn, this human just won't fucking give up. And that's right from the comics too. And then of course Thanos kills him. But it's almost like that idea, that indomitable will, that I don't have any real heavy superpowers, but I've got this righteousness. I got this will to win against evil. You can't kill me, and that alone kind of almost tricks their foes into thinking maybe I can't kill this dude. So that characteristic is in Peggy too, because Peggy takes on Wanda. I'm getting to Wanda. When she takes on Wanda, they start fighting, and then I think Wanda says something, to the effect of, have you had enough, or whatever. Got to have the setup line, or the punchline, and she's like, I could do this all day, in the British accent. I can't do that. And Steve's signature line. That was a great moment. She's great with the shield. The shield effects are great. I like her. She's a cool character. So, but all good things must come to an end. So Stephen is essentially arrested by the Illuminati. He has these bonds that prevent him from using his powers. Um, and so him and America are captured. Uh, and everybody's Mordo's kind of gloating and kind of keeping an eye on them, on Steven especially, and they have kind of a back and forth. And Mordo's like, I kind of see why your Mordo didn't like you, you know. And yeah, and you know, Strange basically tells him, hey, in my universe, you're an evil motherfucker, you know, so why should I trust you? I should have known you were going to betray me. Because at first he welcomes him and calls him brother and says he was hoping for the day the alternate Strange would visit him. Well, yes and no. He wasn't hoping it from a good point of view. He was dreading it. And that's what the Illuminati were preparing for. Because what really happened with Thanos was Doctor Strange had to use the Darkhold and the black magic to destroy Thanos. And unfortunately, it ended up executing part of Thanos' plan. It killed trillions of people throughout the multiverse. Or universe. I'm not sure. Maybe just their universe. Just like Thanos. That's why their world is kind of a dying world. And their world is a victim of, if I'm correct, that's the world that's the victim of the incursion, which is another universe colliding into it, trying to fuse with it, and it can't. Now, that concept is from, I believe, Jason Aaron's run on Fantastic Four, and also that Secret War miniseries. Now, I have read all those via the Comics Explained website. Also recommend his website. I don't always agree with him, but if you want to know what's going on with the recent comics, that dude knows his shit. I don't always agree with his speculations either, but he does lay down the facts. And for that, he's going to be labeled disinformation. Boot it off YouTube. Fuck you, Comics Explained. No, I'm kidding. Great channel. And that's where I learned about the incursion stuff. And in that one, that's kind of how they resolved the whole multiverse issue in Marvel Universe and in the Marvel Comics, was that ultimately all the universes were dying, which they got that idea from Crisis on Infinite Earths. Rest in peace, George Perez, who drew that, by the way. He died this week. Great artist, cool guy. I met him a few times. So, second of silence for George Perez. Okay, so in that storyline, ultimately, the ultimate Marvel Universe and the main Marvel Universe 616 are like fusing together. But all kinds of things are getting destroyed and all this stuff. And Thanos was involved in that story too, and so was the Illuminati. That's a big, long story. Reed was kind of like the hero. Reed Richards was kind of like the hero of that story in a lot of ways, which is good because when the Illuminati were conceived, he, like Tony Stark, became increasingly morally not just gray and dubious, but evil. He didn't carry himself like an asshole like Tony Stark, like he was evil. He rationalized all of his horrible, murderous actions because he is Reed Richards. He is like an egghead scientist. But he was a dick. So Jason Aaron corrects some of that with his portrayal of him in relation with the Illuminati and with Tony Stark during that crisis. So that's where they got the idea of the incursion. So again, a major Marvel Universe, even a recent major Marvel Universe concept adapted well into this film. So Doctor Strange got rid of Thanos, but everything got screwed up. So Doctor Strange had formed the Illuminati to keep the worlds from dying and keep everybody and everything in check and their powers. He himself violated it, and so he accepted his punishment. And they were like a tribunal. They judged him. And the character that was called to task to carry out the judgment was Black Bolt. And Black Bolt says, all he does is he whispers, I'm sorry. And of course, that alone, that power, that energy emanating from him speaking, even a whisper, completely annihilates the character they call Supreme Strange, the 838 Doctor Strange. That's how he really died. And the plaque on the statue is just for public consumption. They don't want them to know the Illuminati are basically these vigilantes, making decisions for all humanity, like they were in the comics, and often making the wrong decisions, like they did in the comics. And this philosophy is personified by a few things. First of all, Reed, as portrayed by Krasinski, very well portrayed, very cool adaptation of his costume. He's pretty much a matter-of-fact guy. He is very intelligent. He's very matter-of-fact. He's very like exposition guy. He tells fills in Stephen Strange of 616, what the deal is. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is why we do it. He's a pragmatic guy. He does what he must for the greater good. He does have a conscience, however, and he feels as though the Illuminati he seems to be the leader of the Illuminati upon Doctor Strange's death. So Mordo is the replacement on the seat as the new Sorcerer Supreme. And Reed seems like a decent guy. He doesn't seem like an asshole who's just kind of justifying what he's doing. He seems like he really believes it, and there's an argument to be had. I mean, the Darkhold is evil as fuck, and Strange kind of screwed up, and in a way, it's a parallel universe commentary on what that idiot said to Steven early in the movie. Was that the only way to save the universe from Thanos? And he's like, yes, it was. And so that Strange of that world, 838, had the same conceit. He believed it was the only way to save the universe from Thanos. And he was wrong. So he accepted his punishment. And we find out that the moral compass, as I've said, of the Illuminati is Professor Charles Xavier, and that he was Stephen Strange's dear friend and the other Doctor Strange that they'd killed. Also, Black Bolt, of course, looks very remorseful, and pained, and because he's got to express a lot with not saying anything and wearing the mask. So Anson Mount does a good job. Xavier, acknowledges, hey, maybe, my Strange was a good man. He was corrupted, but he was a good man. Now, this dovetails into the main plot of the movie and where it all comes together, and you're like, God damn, it took 2 hours. Wanda, from our universe with Wong captive, possesses another universe Wanda that has her children. She uses that one through the dream walking spell, through the Darkhold. And that Wanda, who's just dressed as an ordinary, young lady, she's not the Scarlet Witch, she's not evil, but she's possessed by the evil mainline Scarlet Witch Wanda. And she's like, I'm just going to destroy the Illuminati because they've got America Chavez, who I want. They're in my way. And she's not fucking around, man. And she, unlike Scarlet Witch Wanda, she's channeling her power, but she's not as physically immune to harm. In other words, I guess she doesn't have like a permanent force field or magic imbued halo around her like Scarlet Witch does. So the Wanda Maximoff of the alternate Earth can get physically hurt and does a lot. Her body suffers a lot of physical harm, but she keeps going because the spirit of the Scarlet Witch is so powerful and is in complete possession of her through the dream walking spell. So she just is like kind of sneers at the Illuminati, Reed makes his move to tackle her with his stretchy powers, which they only show a little bit of, and that's good. It looks good what they show, but they don't accentuate it as his main thing, thank God, because they still, I think, need to perfect that to not look cheesy for when they finally do a more MCU FF movie. So he's beginning to use his powers against her, like move against her physically, starting to stretch. And his stretching's very matter of fact. Utilitarian. Like I forget, he grabs something, he pulls it down, and his arm's like way up here, and he just pulls it down, goes back to normal. Seamless effect, not drawing all this attention to itself like the CGI in the Tim Story films, or the hilarious effects in the Roger Corman produced version, which is still my favorite one of the 4 Fantastic Four movies. And the effects for the stretching in that Miles Teller, Reed Richards one was terrible CGI. This is cool. It's very subtle. And so she turns him into spaghetti, basically. She makes so all his rubbery, he goes all rubbery until he finally dissolves. And then Black Bolt is about to, because Reed, right before he gets turned into spaghetti, is basically like, Black Bolt can annihilate you with a whisper. All he has to do is open his mouth. And Wanda's like, what mouth? And Black Bolt has no mouth. His mouth is gone. She's used her magic, and he's like freaking out. And he's already begun to use his power to let out a scream. And so just as Reed turns to spaghetti and dissolves, Black Bolt's scream, I guess, backfires and blows out the back of his skull. Pretty gross. Pretty gross for a Marvel PG-13 movie. I liked it. Not any blood, but it was still pretty graphic. Marvel's growing up, man. So, of course, Maria takes charge and starts blasting the shit out of Wanda. Her and Wanda have this big epic battle. And while that's going on, Stephen Strange, has been talking a bit to, Stephen Strange. Charles Xavier has been talking to our Stephen Strange. And again, like I said, lamenting their friendship. So he uses his mind power, which I predicted this was going to happen. I had a feeling he would, because he wasn't in the leaked scene where they're all confronting Wanda head on. So I'd already seen some of what scene I just told you before, and I posted a still from it on my thumbnail to that video. Charles, as I predicted, go accurately for once, goes into Wanda's mind. And it's really incredible. It's like desolate. It's just all white, and there's like this bricked up little remains of a house. It's all kind of white and crumbly in the middle of this nowhere. Again, very Ditko-ish. And Charles can walk, of course, in his self-image. He can walk, as he always does when he astral projects, kind of. Because he kind of does astral project, but just in a different way than Doctor Strange. And I've always liked their friendship in the comics, and I like the fact they had one in this universe. That made me really happy. Everything about Charles Xavier, Patrick Stewart, the real one, makes me happy. And like I said, this girl next to me is like, oh. And I'll more on that in a minute. So he can walk, and he's wearing like a black sweater and like some slacks. And he looks very old and frail, which he is getting old and frail. Patrick Stewart's like 78 or 79. But he's still, man, he's fucking Patrick Stewart, man. And he's like, I want to help you. And Wanda, the real Wanda, whose body she's possessing, is underneath this rubble. There's this little crevice where she's like trapped in the basement of what this house used to be, but now it's just these bricks, this decaying white bricks in this white nothing space. And she's like reaching out, he's like, I'll try to free you. Hold my hand. And he's so like sweet and caring. And we keep flashing back and forth. Great effects how they flash back and forth when she took possession of that Wanda. And then when they always flash back and forth between that Wanda and the Scarlet Witch, who's kind of in this lotus position, possessing her with the Darkhold. The editing's brilliant. I said this about everything, everywhere, all at once. I think this editing's even more brilliant. Obviously, a lot of very precise digital editing to move, not even dissolve or these images like that, but so seamlessly. It doesn't even look like a dissolve. It's like your eye blinks back and forth. I'd love to frame by frame this when I get it on Blu-ray. But they do that trick a lot, that effect of between the alternate Wanda, the good Wanda with the two kids, and the Scarlet Witch. And in this one, you see, the real Wanda, her spirit, trying to be pulled out by the mind of Charles Xavier. And meanwhile, her body, having knocked Captain Marvel out, grabs Xavier and snaps his neck with her bare hands. Now, obviously, like I said, her body isn't as strong as the Scarlet Witch's. So she's like got, bruises and battering and bleeding and, from being tossed all around by Captain Marvel and doing all these feats, like snapping this guy's neck and blasting through shit. And so her body's kind of wearing out. Scarlet Witch is wearing out good Wanda's body. And which is a foreshadowing towards our climactic battle, which I might get to in 3 or 4 more hours at the rate I'm going. So Wanda kills Xavier, and the girl next to me was like, no. And I was kind of like that too, without the. That was sad, man. I was sad when he died in X3. I was sad when he died in Days of Future Past. I was sad when he died in Logan. So now they've taken Patrick Stewart Xavier away from me 4 times, you motherfuckers. Why are you doing this to me? He's going to appear again in the MCU. I know he will, an alternate version, a variant. And they'll kill him too and make me cry a 5th time. Thanks, guys. Anyway, so then she finishes off Captain Marvel because basically, like, she blasts her away to where her powers are kind of spent for a second, and then she drops this statue on top of her and kills her. Yeah. And then Peggy takes her on, and she's like, I can do this all day. And then she takes control of Peggy's shield as it's spinning around in it. Slices Peggy in half. You don't see all of it, but you get the point. She's been bisected to death by this shield. Kind of the way Captain America in the comics decapitated Baron Blood with his shield. And he was like, ooh, gross. I got to do it. He's a vampire. So it's not the same thing as killing a living person. It was a great issue, actually. And yes, that's the end of Peggy. Disemboweled by the shield, man. All the killings are very violent and cool. Sam's getting ruthless by this point in the movie. He's getting his confidence up. He's like, they can handle some more gore. So what does he do? Strange frees himself and battles Mordo. And he gets one of those magic inhibitors on Mordo's wrist, so they fight like fist to fist. It's kind of funny. Somehow, I can't remember how, America gets free. Maybe Wanda frees her to take her. But she gets free. And Mordo, what happens to Mordo? I can't remember. Mordo just gets knocked out and left there. I can't remember him dying. But Wanda probably annihilates him, and I forgot. She's on a warpath. So she's chasing them, America and Doctor Strange, and they're running through this Illuminati installation. This is when they get help from the person that kind of checked them in when they were captured by Mordo. I totally forgot that scene, but it's good to mention it here. Christine Palmer. Earth 838's Christine Palmer was, as she put it, commissioned by the Baxter Foundation, which we recognize from the Baxter Building from the Fantastic Four from the comics, to work for the Illuminati to maintain this operation. And she's the one who's been monitoring them being imprisoned. I believe she's the one who frees Doctor Strange, frees America, because she trusts Stephen's like, please trust me. I know my Stephen fucked you over, and because she's like, yeah, he did, and she's like, did he love you? And he's flashing back on that wedding thing, and he's probably thinking, man, here's an alternate Christine, and she's single. If I can just get her to get us out of here and get through this, I can bang this redheaded Christine. And I mean, under those circumstances and with the past feelings for her and the way they got her looking in this movie, I don't blame Cumberbatch. I get it. I'm with you, man. But you got to say the multiverse first. Then you get Christine, maybe. So Christine does help them, and she believes this Strange is it's benevolent and from another universe. And you can tell she's even getting kind of attracted to him as their alliance goes on. So she becomes an important character. She's like the last survivor of the Illuminati, the Baxter Foundation facility. She gets them away from Wanda, who's like limping and crawling because her body's so used up, but the evil one is still, driving her. So finally, Doctor Strange gets to kind of a safe place, which is basically another universe. And the three of them get to this other universe. America and Christine and Stephen evade Wanda, punch a star-shaped hole again, and she's starting to learn to control her powers a little. And she gets to this alternate universe. They get to this alternate universe, and here we meet a character that in the promotional materials is called Sinister Strange. And basically, he is a Strange who is, his world is pretty decimated too. I think it had an incursion too, it's really fucked up. And or maybe it had the main incursion, and the Illuminati world only had some devastation. I can't remember because they have they're spinning off the similar timeline, but variants of each other as we go along. So it's kind of interesting. Each universe Doctor Strange we meet, there's progressively more fucked up shit happening to the multiverse that's in some way or another caused by Doctor Strange being corrupted by black magic, which that's the whole moral dilemma of the movie is our Stephen going to have to finally use the Darkhold and be corrupted too in order to stop Wanda and save the multiverse? And what consequences will that have? And this is strongly based on a storyline by Peter Gillis from the early 90s in Doctor Strange, where in order to save the universe from some horrible forces, I can't remember who it was, ultimately he battles Shuma-Gorath again. He had to learn black magic, and Kalu, who was one of the Ancient Ones' fellow disciples at Camartage hundreds of years ago, and then became his first foe because he turned to the dark side, so to speak. Doctor Strange had banished him to another dimension way back then. So 25 years later, in our time, comics-wise, he frees Kalu, and he's like, Kalu, I need you to train me in black magic. And Kalu's like, okay, cool, and they're buddies. And he has to sacrifice one of his eyes as part of the blood sacrifice to get toward the magic. It's an incredible story, but obviously it informs this movie, the whole idea. And we've been moving towards this with Wanda's dilemma and each of the Doctor Stranges closer and closer to, will our Stephen have to become corrupted by black magic like Wanda and the other Stranges we've seen? Well, Defender Strange wasn't, but so it boils down to the fact that, yes, he has to. And the first thing he has to do is he's got to stop this evil Doctor Strange, who's now kind of just wandering around the mansion and just saying sinister things. They have an incredible battle visually and sonically. They battle. He's trying to find a way to get the Darkhold away from this Doctor Strange, who's become its custodian. And there's a piano in the room, and he gets knocked against it, and he starts using the musical notes. And so you visually see the music notes come to life. I don't know music theory as much as I like to play music and listen to music, but I recognize, all these symbols, and they visually have a battle through music. So the music notes are the visual battle with each other, powers they're throwing at each other, and then the sounds are accompanying them. And I'm hoping that the Danny Elfman, who did the score for this, that used the correct notes, played the correct notes as we're seeing those notes. I wouldn't know, since I don't know music theory, I can't read music. But I'm going to give Danny the benefit of the doubt because I'm sure he can read music. So that's kind of a whimsical battle. It's very imaginative. Visually, it's imaginative. Conceptually, it's imaginative. It's something you couldn't do in the comic books. You could do the music notes, but you couldn't accompany the sounds or the movement with it. So this is cool. This is the kind of spell that we've never seen Doctor Strange, that I know of, in any iteration, in any medium do, and it's fabulous. And ultimately, though, he has to take the Darkhold from the other Strange, defeat the other Strange, and do the dream walking. And so in order to dream walk, he's going to have to go back to the Prime Universe at 616. But there's no Doctor Strange there, as America points out. And she's like, maybe not a living one. And he hid the... It's a pretty funny scene. He takes all these bricks and he seals up the corpse of Defender Strange. And they're like, is that safe? Is that a good thing to do? And I think Wong, he says it, or America says it. And he's like, I've hidden worse things, this way. Would you just think that's what Doctor Strange would do? There's a corpse laying around. I don't have time to bury it. Let's just reconstruct these bricks here and make like a little tomb on the roof of a building no one will ever notice. So he wakes up the dead Strange. Basically, he dreamwalks into the corpse's body. So the body's kind of like a zombie. He's a little decayed. So we're definitely in Raimi territory here. And he has a spectacular battle with Scarlet Witch. Frees Wong, who helps out where he can. And all this black magic shit is released from the Darkhold. And at first, when it's released by Steven in the other dimension, he can't really handle it because he's never used the Darkhold, of course. He's leafing through it. He's speed reading it to get the dreamwalking spell. And there's these demonic floating beings. They're kind of like deadites. We're definitely in Sam Raimi territory. They're jet black. They look like corpses. They have horns. And also in this, they used an effect a lot that they used in WandaVision. That was cool. Is when the black magic starts to paint the person, all of their fingertips turn black. They use that with Agatha Harkness, and when Wanda gets the Darkhold at the end of WandaVision. So they've already had Wanda, the Scarlet Witch Wanda, have the black fingertips throughout. So now Doctor Strange's fingertips start turning black. And he's in the corpse body. He can still talk. He's kind of awkward. He's kind of damaged like the other Wanda, even worse. But he's fighting Wanda and he's winning. And what he ultimately does is he gives America the idea, because Wanda's gotten a hold of America. And of course, Christine's been around to help Steven defeat Sinister Strange and do the dream walking. So he frees America. And of course, this is another corny thing like, are you happy? But you can control your power, the inspirational moment. Obligatory, I guess. And she's like, okay. And she punches the star. And she opens a portal to the Earth where the good Wanda and her children lived. And we see good Wanda's there. Now, this is where I have my memory. I can't remember if it's the good Wanda whose body she used, who might all be used up and dead, but she's made it back to her kids. Might be the same character. Or it could be another alternate universe with another good Wanda. But in any case, there's a good Wanda there, dressed the same way as the one who fucked up the Illuminati. And she's with her kids, and Scarlet Witch has to face her and try to, she can't handle psychologically. I mean, she's seeing her kids. She tries to take them from the good Wanda. They freak out. She blasts the good Wanda aside, and they're terrified of her. And they're like, she's a witch. She's evil, And this pretty much breaks down Wanda. Her resolve, her will to do this whole mission, her will to take America's powers and kill her, her will to permanently take those two boys to some other place and live happily ever after, and really her will to live. And after what she's been through, I don't know. Can you blame her, really? I mean, in a way, this was inevitable, really. Once they decided after WandaVision that, okay, she's going to go stay down the dark path, maybe she wasn't irredeemable. But once she did start killing people right and left in this movie, I guess she did become irredeemable. And that is the 616 Prime Wanda that I knew and loved. And I'm rooting now for the alternate Wanda Maximoff, and without the Scarlet Witch powers. And so basically she, I don't know, in the middle of this battle, there's a lot of CGI shit floating around in bricks and buildings and things flying all through the movie. So just as in the case with Maria Rambeau being crushed by the statue when she's temporarily not powered up, Wanda basically lets herself go. And this place she's in, where she's held America, what it is it's Wundagore Mountain. I neglected to mention that like an idiot. But that, again, is straight from the comics. Wundagore Mountain was where Scarlet Witch was conceived in the comics, and where the elder god Chthon wrote the Darkhold, and also where he planted in Wanda the seed for her magical power. All that's from the comics, and this is in the movie. Of course, I neglected to mention it. That'd be another 5 hours. But yeah, where Wanda goes, where she takes Wong as her place, her base from which to dreamwalk, is the Darkhold itself. So the Darkhold, the book, is destroyed in her universe by Doctor Strange, I think. or Wong, one of them. And the Darkhold itself is a Darkhold. It's like a little chapel, like an abbey, a dark abbey, a black abbey, and all the spells are on the walls. So then they all glow kind of with red, the sigils on the black walls. And those spells were transcribed into the book by Chthon. And that's directly from the comics. Wong says all this in the exposition. We don't see it, but it's exactly what we saw in a flashback in an old Avengers comic drawn by John Byrne. All of this. And I'm like, wow, where's the High Evolutionary? But he doesn't show up, unfortunately. But it is Wundagore Mountain. It is just, all of that lore that plays into her having these powers is explored. The only thing really they never touch on, obviously, in any of these movies is her being a mutant originally, because mutants were off limits to the Marvel Studios until they bought Fox. Disney bought Fox. They don't even refer to Charles Xavier as a mutant. He's got these powers. They don't say, I don't think they say, maybe they say Charles Xavier, mutant, whatever, but I don't think so. But of course, in the MCU, she was an enhanced individual touched by one of the stones in the spear by experiments by Baron Strucker. Another one of those barons. Now, they said he was a baron right away. They didn't introduce him not as a baron. So I guess, if they're a Nazi, it's okay. So don't get me started on that. So Wanda, yeah, and so that's a brilliant idea. I don't know if that's in the comics or not. I've never seen a physical Darkhold. Then maybe that's true. But the part about him inscribing the spells to preserve them into the book, Chthon, that's true. So now you have an elder god mentioned, Chthon. So he may or may not appear. So we have Living Tribunal, Chthon. We've got the characters in the Illuminati. I mean, we're opening all these doors to other Marvel Universe concepts appearing in MCU films and TV shows. So that's where she's been. That's Wundagore Mountain. And when she loses, it collapses, because essentially Doctor Strange is, through his corpse, Defender Corpse Strange, he's destroying the Darkhold, the literal Darkhold. And so Wanda lets it crumble, and it looks like it doesn't, no blood or gore or broken bones or fingers poking out, but it looks like pretty much it crushes her to death. I mean, just the finality of it, the way it's shot, the way it's the sound. I'm not saying Wanda of 616 is dead, but I think she is. I prefer, but I'm not going to say this is fact just because I'm speculating here, doing some more speculating. I hope Wanda is dead. I hope this is the end of her tragic story. Give the lady a break. Now, Elizabeth Olsen has said she'd like to keep playing Wanda, so maybe a Wanda variant, like, but not necessarily the same as the good one with the children, will show up again. I'm sure. I don't know if it will be a regular character or join the Avengers. But that would be okay with me. Pre-Scarlet Witch Wanda, I don't know. I mean, can't she be the Scarlet Witch and be good? Well, that's the problem. She could for years in the comics, but then from that Bendis story arc on, they kind of decided that no, inevitably Wanda is probably going to end up being evil, being a Scarlet Witch. She's got some destiny. That was a retcon later, that she has some destiny inherited from her birth mother, and a lineage of Scarlet Witches that Agatha talked about. That's all very recent Marvel retcon that further retconned away that she wasn't a mutant in the comics, because they felt like they had to mirror the movies. And then it's like, whoops, my bad. We own Fox. We could make Wanda and Pietro mutants, but too late now. Okay, so like I said, Marvel is getting pretty good at, they're having to master course correction, because they have a lot of fuck ups that are either bad decisions they make at the corporate level, or things that are out of their hands legally, like the X-Men rights. And so they're course correcting, and I think in a way that's what this whole multiverse thing is being used to do in a lot of ways, is to open up the Marvel universe, the scope of it as it is in the comics, and correct mistakes, and introduce us to versions of characters that we really should have seen from the beginning, but for one reason or another never have. It's a good thing. So that's the end of Wanda, and Stephen vacates the corpse, and it's all good. And America has decided she's going to stay in this reality, and she's going to train at Camartage. They're rebuilding. One character from the comics, another Doctor Strange mythology character they introduced is Rentra, who looks like a Minotaur. And I don't think he ever speaks any dialogue, but he becomes a disciple of Doctor Strange in the comic books during the Roy Thomas era. I believe that Rentra was not a Doctor Strange creation, but he was introduced in the storyline where Strange has to master black magic. And so he was inherited from Peter Gillis, the creator, by Roy Thomas in that subsequent story that I described in painstaking detail earlier in this video, like an hour and a half ago. Rentra was introduced in that story, and in Roy's run, he makes Rentra a disciple of Doctor Strange, and eventually Rentra, I think in some alternate universe in Marvel, is a Sorcerer Supreme eventually. So it's nice seeing him. He's kind of cute and fuzzy. You know, he's not particularly menacing looking or too weird looking, but so they'll probably have a plush Rentra in no time doll you can play with. Did they ever make dolls after those characters in Shang-Chi? I can't remember. So that's their ending, and Wong is cool and everything, and Steven is back home, and he said goodbye to the other Christine, and he's in a real soulful, uncharacteristic moment. His voice drops, and I wonder if everyone does this. I do it. You know, when you really love someone and you're really telling them, and you're really your real self, and you're really bearing that self in a loving way. And I noticed that when I met my ex-fiance, when we started talking on the phone, I was like, wait a minute, I'm talking differently. And I heard a little bit of that in my voice when I was talking to Ann Meliora recently. But, you know, his voice suddenly goes like, I'll love you in every universe. You know, it's like, it doesn't sound like him at all. But that's that side where a man kind of like bears it all, man. He's tender, he's real, and this is the one person in the universe or multiverse that he's going to show this side of himself to, and I have experienced that in my life, and I've seen guys do it, and I've seen guys do it in movies. So nice to see Strange showing that side of himself, because we know Cumberbatch is a good actor. So. But with that admission, unfortunately, comes that he must part with Christine. She won't come with him to the new universe. So Strange is back. He's back on Bleecker Street. He's gotten over his love, or you know, nursing his broken heart. He's going to be single, but is he happy? He looks happy, and he's walking down the street, and then he has a searing pain, and the music goes crazy, and then a third eye appears. Now, what's the character called? Sinister Strange had a third eye. Did I even mention that? See, I keep forgetting important shit. And that was a symbol of his corruption by black magic. He had a third eye, you know, and the effect was weird. It didn't look seamless, like a nice, smooth third eye, like opening real smoothly, like naturally. And it didn't look like the Eye of Agamotto when Doctor Strange used to, because Doctor Strange has had a third eye in the comics before. But that's a whole nother story. But that it was a weird, uncomfortable CGIing of third eye. That had a weird kind of, you know, furrowed brow around it. So when Doctor Strange falls in the street screaming and this shrill music comes in, when we see him come up, he has the third eye. So that was the first after credit sequence. So my takeaway from that was that he has been corrupted by the Darkhold. The question is, to what extent has he been corrupted? Can he master it to a usable level, the way he did in the comic books for a little while? The way we hoped Wanda would? We don't know. But the final post-credit sequence, well, actually, that's the end of the movie. My bad. The post-credit sequence is he's walking on the street again, and he's happy. He's got a different shirt on. But if we own it's the same day, a different day, but he seems to be fine. He doesn't have a third eye. And then he's a dimensional portal comes out and opens and comes out Charlize Theron with silver hair and dressed in all purple and magenta and variants. And we, of course, know then that she's playing the iconic character Clea that I've spoken so much about. Now, I always picture Clea as an ingenue, a younger character than Strange, maybe not chronologically, because people from the Dark Dimension may age differently than us. Physically, a much younger looking character than the graying Strange, and kind of a sex symbol. You know, I mean, I'm just going to be frank. Just the way Ditko introduced her, kind of an ingenue. She didn't even have a name at first for a while. And then the way Englehart and Brunner depicted her as very sexy in the tight purple outfit, and that they have a very sexual romantic relationship, which Strange struggled through the Strange Tales run to rescue her from villain after villain and finally claim her. It was really romantic shit. Some of Stan Lee's better scripting and whoever else scripted the issues with him. And Roy Thomas wrote a lot of it. Good shit, I think. Classic stuff. And so I've always wanted them to be together. But I guess in the politically correct MCU modern era we live in, her being an ingenue and a mere disciple, it goes back to long from the 1978 movie, and when Peter Hooton Strange says, "Why do you call him master?" You know, it'd be like, she's your ingenue. You rescued her. She's helpless. She becomes your lover and your disciple, your underling. You know, so it would be out of sorts. I guess it would never happen. So it's kind of one of those romantic, maybe wholly male, maybe wholly heterosexual male, perverted male. I don't know. Maybe Steve Ditko and Englehart and Gerber had it. So I guess we're all alike in that sense. It's of a different time. We'll just use that cliche. That's a bad excuse for it. It just wouldn't work now, I guess. And I finally had to come to the tragic realization. Because I always wanted Emily DeCon to play Clea. Always. And that was especially when Johnny Depp was rumored to be Doctor Strange. But, oh, the irony. So, she's Clea. And she looks like Clea. Her hair is a little not quite as cool looking as Clea, but she looks good. Charlize is an attractive actress. And being a year older in real life than Benedict Cumberbatch, she's definitely not an ingenue. She's more the fully realized Clea as a sorceress in her own right, which is the modern character we have, which is not a retcon to me. I mean, to me, it's a continuum. You know, Clea developed from the helpless ingenue to the lover, to the disciple, to the sorceress supreme, perhaps one day herself. Of course, that's not what we have in the MCU. We don't have that iteration. We have the whole cloth, all at once retcon. You know, just basically taking the modern Clea from the comics. And I guess for now, assuming that's the way she's always been, because obviously she didn't know Doctor Strange, unless she knew an alternate Doctor Strange, which now we know is a possibility. I just thought of that. Hey. So anyway, she's probably be like, that Doctor Strange enslaved me. He was a pig, a chauvinist, bastard. I killed him and took over. Sorry, I'm being a fanbro for a second there. She says, you know, you've caused a problem, an incursion in your travels through the multiverse, and we must fix it. And so she says, are you up to it? And he looks like he's challenged, and then his third eye appears, and he gets like, yeah, and he like changes his clothes to the cloak and everything, and it's almost kind of like, yeah, like there's a beautiful woman here hurling a gauntlet at me, and can I accept it? Yes, especially now that I've got the darkness in me to, you know. So they go through and ostensibly to the dark dimension where she ostensibly hails from, as in the comics, where the character Dormammu does hail from in the first Doctor Strange movie and in the comics. Except in the movies, we haven't met Dormammu's sister Umar or Clea, who is Umar's daughter. Hence, Clea is Dormammu's niece. So again, I'm assuming based on slight visual clues and some stuff I've read elsewhere. I'm sorry, but that's the dark dimension they're going into because that's where Clea is from in the comics. Could be something totally different, but she basically is like, you need to save my dimension. So causing an incursion into the dark dimension would be an interesting story and would definitely bring Dormammu back and test Doctor Strange's how he's dealing with having these dark powers in him now. So it's definitely a to be continued moment. And, basically, Strange did do what Supreme Strange did also, accidentally, just cause an incursion. So, in a way, yes, all along the Illuminati were right that the problem wasn't Wanda or America Chavez, it was Steven. He'll always be the problem. Whereas Christine's of Earth 838, her conclusion to him upon parting is yes, there will always be a good in Doctor Strange, and you are the realization of that. It's ironic she says that to him right after he's gotten corrupted, unbeknownst to him. But this movie has a lot of layers. It's an incredible film. Visually, to me, it's like the ultimate kind of journey slash thrill ride slash what do you want to say, tour of the cosmic side of the Marvel universe and opening it up to all kinds of possibilities while also servicing the characters dramatically, mainly Steven and of course Wanda, especially. She's like the most valuable player, Elizabeth Olsen, in this. And seeing the Illuminati, it's incredible. Not for the reasons that Illuminati comics fans stated or the fan bros. It's incredible to me because, once again, it does two things. One, it opens up the Marvel Universe, like I just said, to other characters, other realities, other actors. But in another way, in a very personal level, I do once again feel vindicated that they are all from one Earth, and it's a much closer adaptation to the comics than the fan bros or even Marvel led us to believe. This movie is not what it appears to be. It's not exactly what it's advertised to be. And I did read a few Facebook comments today, and like I said, one guy insists that the Superior Iron Man scenes were shot and they're out there ready to be used as a Blu-ray bonus feature. But I think it did achieve a bait and switch. I think it shamed the fan bros. And there's a lot of backlash happening. I mean, they're all going to see it. It's making a ton of money, but they're all complaining. There are a lot of people online who were saying, and it was refreshing, I encountered saying, it isn't what I was expecting. There aren't as much multiverse parts. There aren't as much Illuminati parts. There aren't as much cameos by other characters I was hoping for. But I like what I got, and it's a great movie, and that's what counts. I read about 5 or 6 comments this morning saying almost verbatim those words. That's how I see it. That's good. Some fan bros, they're redeemable. They are redeemable, despite being corrupted. And the ones that aren't are like, I hate this movie. It's shit. Where the fuck was Hugh Jackman and Tobey Maguire? I got had, man. This ain't the movie you told me and didn't have much multiverse at all. This is kind of like my friend Win Scott Eckert. He just wrote an official, and congrats, Win, once again, if I haven't congrated him on camera yet. Congrats for actually ascending to the point of being an official author, writing a canonical, authorized ERB, authorized Tarzan continuation novel. And he did. And it's great. I mean, I think it's great that Wynn did this. I think it's great that he's made it this far because he has a love and knowledge of Tarzan that few mortals living do. And we won't talk about immortals like Zazaz or the Nine or any of those guys, but mortals. And I think that, as he said lately, he got a lot of complaints from fan bros. All this kind of same kind of complaints that Star Trek Discovery gets. And he's also a Star Trek fan like myself and a fan of those shows. And it's the same thing. Too many women. That Tarzan novel is all women. It's all servicing the woke PC fucking crowd. Those leftist liberals. And of course, these idiots don't know enough about socio-political anything to know that leftist, liberal, woke, and PC have gotten to the point where they all pretty much have very discrete and different meanings now from each other. Some of them totally antithetical. For instance, I'm a leftist, but I am not a liberal. Put it that way. I'm woke in the old sense of the word, the sense that the Black Power people used it with. I'm not woke in the sense of PC though to service a corporation. However, I don't see these things as being that way. I don't see a black woman captaining a Star Trek ship to be maybe it's old school woke, but there's nothing wrong with the old school. These people have stolen our terms and have corrupted them. They did it with liberal, they did it with woke, they did it with progressive. They haven't done it with leftist yet, but I guess when they do it leftist, I'll just have to just say I'm a socialist finally. Um, so yeah, Wynn got that kind of complaint, because he had a lot of strong female characters on camera in this, Tarzan novel he wrote, and they were like too many women and everything I just said. So that's kind of like some of what I'm reading about this movie. It's like I got gypped, and I think that's great. This movie's a victory. It's a fuck you and a middle finger to fan bros who toxic fandom, as some people, including Wynn, sometimes call them, who are trying to ruin this shit for us, who really know our shit and love our stuff, know when these people have done shit wrong, like making the Ancient One a British woman, and know it was done for the wrong reasons, and call it out for the right reasons because we know the source material and we know it's done for misguided reasons. But giving Tarzan a lot of female major characters, or some of the stuff we've seen in some of the Marvel material is not being woke, as they use it as an insult. It's like when they use trigger as an insult, which trigger really was a psychological term, and it's still valid and still real. As someone who suffers from mental illness, I have triggers too, and things that trigger me. Some days fan bros trigger me really bad. You guys have probably figured that out. So on that note, I'm going to split. That's the movie. Go see it. It's the best Marvel MCU movie ever made. I know the ads are on TV now. Spider-Man No Way Home is the best Marvel movie ever, and it's got Doctor Strange in it. And then, okay, well, no, sorry. The best one just knocked you out. A few weeks after you hit Blu-ray, now you've already been dethroned, Spider-Man. So anyway, both Ditko creations. Ditko came up with this, not because he was an occult. Well, he knew about the occult, but he wasn't an occultist. It wasn't like the Devil's Horns, like Dio or Coven. They both do it different ways. And then of course the sign language. I love use this one. But in the early '60s, when Ronnie Dio was, a little kid. Well, I guess he'd already seen the Devil's Horns. But before Coven was formed, before Kiss was formed, before this kind of metal and thing, before sign language became really universally known, before any of those pop culture things, Steve Ditko created these two characters. Spider-Man did this. I'm going to do it wrong. He did this to shoot his webs. I guess he did that to shoot his webs. So his is more like that symbol, which is more like the Devil's Horn. And more like the Devil's Horns that Coven uses. Then there's more like the Evil Eye Italian one that Dio mentions, which is becoming a way more popular, probably because it's easier to do with your thumb. It's much easier for me. And that's identical to I Love You in sign language. So for that one, he had Doctor Strange cast his spells. And for that one, he had Spider-Man spin his webs. So is that a coincidence? No, I don't think so. Is it a coincidence that on the Doctor Strange poster of this new movie, this is prominent? He's doing this. Now, there are people who probably will label all this stuff satanic, evil, horrible, nasty, corrupting crap, and saying that, things like this are disseminating vile, evil messages and brainwashing people. Whatever. So anyway, thank you. I'll be back. I'm sorry this was the longest episode I've ever done. If you've made it this far, I owe you a lot. And thank you so much. I appreciate everything.